spell through this week, and it's still pretty good out there today. Some thickening cloud across southern counties may produce 1 or 2 showers, but generally dry and bright, some good spells of sunshine. But it is clouding over across western Scotland, and there's those weather fronts bringing rain to Northern Ireland, slowly trickling in, getting towards Belfast by the middle of the afternoon. Temperature-wise, well, in the sunny spells, we could still get to 22, maybe 23 Celsius. Cooler around some coasts and where it is predominantly cloudy, and certainly feeling cooler as the rain seeps its way into Northern Ireland and trickles into western Scotland during this evening. Much of Scotland will stay fine through the evening rush hour, but that rain will be pushing on to the west coast. It's going to be a damp end to the day across Northern Ireland, and that rain spreading into parts of north and west Wales too. Further south and east staying dry and fine, but even here it is going to cloud over, and that rain will be working into pretty much all areas as we go through the night. So if you're heading out this evening, just be prepared for that rain to be creeping its way across many western areas, getting to eastern England, eastern Scotland through the early hours, maybe even the odd heavier burst here and there. So a very different night, a very damp night and a very mild night. Last night we got down to -5 in Scotland. Tonight, most of us staying in double figures. So it will be a cold start to the weekend, but it will be a dull and a damp start. Now this main area of rain is going to shimmy away pretty smartly. So for most places, tomorrow's a brightening up kind of day. There'll be some lifting of the cloud, maybe even a few sunny spells, but that could spark some heavy showers, perhaps over eastern England, northeast Scotland, 1 or 2 for Northern Ireland. So yes, there'll be some showers, but it should brighten up as we go through Saturday.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Someone is going to win the biggest prize package to date, and that someone could be you, driving away in this Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It has plenty of room for your family of 4, comes complete with kitchen, bathroom and all the space you'll need for life on the road. Plus, we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
It is cruel because I think children are only your children for 16 years, 18 years, right? And then they go and they have to do all this stuff for themselves. I think while they're young, their main priorities should be their education, coming in, doing their homework, getting to bed, getting enough sleep. My children, for example, are 11 and 16, so one's doing his GCSEs, the other still randomly has a ton of homework, even at 11. By the time they've come in and done their homework, they're exhausted and they go to bed. I just don't think it is my job as a parent to tell them to then go and mop the floor or hoover their bedrooms. Their main focus is their education at this age.
Yeah. You made my blood run cold there talking about homework, because I'm not a believer in homework. I think school is where you do work and then you come home, and home is where you can do anything else that you want to do. But I just think it's just all too much.
I think this is a tricky one because we're not talking about Victorian Britain or sending children up chimneys. We're talking making your bed, tidying your room. I think it's a great help for people to do chores around the house. There's been several studies where they've seen that it's had beneficial well-being for children. And I think it's just about learning about time management, confidence, resilience. These are just basic life skills. So many people these days, teenagers, grow up and they don't have them, and then they're going off to university or whatever. I saw a really funny video actually of a mum who couldn't get her child to clean up, so she got black rice, sprinkled it around the room and told him it was mouse droppings. Now, I don't know if we need to go that far, but I do think it's good for children as a whole.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you and a happy Friday. It's 3 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, Donald Trump has dropped a huge bombshell on Brussels by slapping the European Union with 50% trade tariffs. Trump blasted our discussions with them are going nowhere and warned the tariffs, which Britain will dodge, of course, thanks to that beautiful Brexit bonus. Well, the EU's tariffs start on June the 1st. And that man, Donald Trump, has issued a defiant message to Sir Keir Starmer, and it's set to give Ed Miliband nightmares.
Will drill, baby, drill.
Yes, Donald Trump has urged Keir Starmer to lose his unsightly windmills and drill for more oil in the North Sea. And Nigel Farage says Donald Trump is 100% right.
Retreat! No surrender! No retreat! No surrender! No retreat! No surrender!
And it's been revealed today the true cost of the Chagos Islands deal could be as high as £30 billion. Astonishing analysis by GBNews today reveals that could pay for 1 million new nurses, a new nuclear power plant, or enough winter fuel allowance to keep British pensioners warm for 20 years. The lawyer on your screens there, Beatrice, she'll be joining me later on the show. And the question today is this: should we send the dosh to Mauritius, or should charity begin at home? And the families of those murdered by the triple killer Valdo Calacane are to emotionally return to the site of the killings to mark their second anniversary. On today's show, I'll be joined by the mother of Barnaby Webber, Emma, and the father of Grace O'Malley Kumar to highlight what they call a systemic lack of care, compassion and respect. And GB News viewers were outraged this week when a little ship's flotilla to mark the 85th anniversary of the Dunkirk evacuation was diverted due to a dinghy rescue of an illegal immigrant. Well, on today's show, I'll be joined by the grandson of a British Army veteran who was evacuated on that fateful day from Dunkirk to get his thoughts. I tell you what, you will not want to miss it. Well, to show what an action-packed whopper of a show we got today, Donald Trump would call it huge, the same as the 50% tariffs he's just slapped on Brussels. 4:30 this afternoon, the US trade envoy is set to walk into the European Union to begin a round of talks. Well, the prawn cocktail today, 50% tariffs, what's going to be on the main course? This standoff will continue. Will the European Union dare to go head-to-head, dare to lock horns and have a trade war? If they do that, NATO could be on the table. Anything could happen for the United Kingdom. This, I put it to you, my beautiful viewers, is a Brexit bonus. We've dodged the bullet because we're not tied to Brussels. Let's be merciful of that. And could this be a huge opportunity for post-Brexit Britain to cash in and start flogging our goods to the United States? Look on the bright side of life. That's what we do here on the show. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. Now, it's your headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories. President Donald Trump says he's recommending imposing 50% tariffs on goods from the European Union being imported to the United States starting on the 1st of June. Our discussions with Brussels are going nowhere, he said on a post on social media today. The announcement marks an escalation of Trump's trade war with the EU, which currently has a 10% tariff on all goods being brought into America. The EU Commission today declined to comment, saying it would wait for a phone call between the EU trade chief and his US counterpart to take place today. The president also threatened to impose a 25% import tax on iPhones not manufactured in America. Meanwhile, President Trump is calling for the UK to increase and incentivise North Sea oil drilling. Writing on Truth Social, he says our negotiated deal with the United Kingdom is working out well for all. I strongly recommend to them, however, that in order to get their energy costs down, they stop with the costly and unsightly windmills and incentivise modernised drilling in the North Sea, where large amounts of oil lay waiting to be taken. That says energy bills in the UK will fall by 7% in July, the first drop for a year. It means a household using a typical amount of gas and electricity will see their annual bill fall by £129. Households are being urged to shop around for cheaper energy deals despite prices falling from July. Ofgem says shopping around could lead to a £200 annual saving, but anyone currently on a fixed deal will not benefit from the fall this summer. The regulator's price cap sets the maximum that suppliers can charge for each unit of energy, affecting 21 million households in England, Scotland and Wales. Charities say cheaper bills are welcome, but many people still struggle to pay, with millions of customers collectively owing about £4 billion to suppliers. Under-Secretary of State at the Department for Energy Security, Miata Fambule, says it's a big relief for families under pressure with the cost of living, but needs to go further.
But we're really clear that we have to continue the work of getting bills down for good. And the only way we're going to do that is to break our reliance on global fossil fuel markets we have no control over and deliver clean, homegrown energy. And we are working flat out to deliver that. And we're also really clear that as we make that transition, we've got to do the job of supporting households. And that's why we're looking to expand the Warm Homes discount to over 6 million households. And that's why we're doing the work of upgrading hundreds of thousands of homes to make them warmer and cheaper to run.
Harvard is suing the Trump administration after it revoked the university's ability to enrol international students. In the lawsuit filed in Boston, the university called the administration's actions a blatant violation of the law. It comes a day after officials at the Department of Homeland Security said they would be revoking Harvard's access to student visa programs. The Trump administration says Harvard has not done enough to fight anti-Semitism and change its hiring and admissions practices, allegations that the university has strongly denied. A major incident's been declared as firefighters battle a large blaze at a recycling warehouse in Northamptonshire. Emergency crews were called to the scene at Sanders Lodge Industrial Estate in Rushden at about 6:30 this morning. Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue Service said it's receiving cross-border support from Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue Service and anticipates crews will remain at the scene for the rest of the weekend. NFRS said the fire involves a large quantity of plastic. 9 people suspected of working illegally in the UK have been arrested after Home Office immigration enforcement officers descended on a Surrey caravan park on Tuesday morning. The individuals, 5 Brazilian men, 1 Brazilian woman, 2 Indian men and an Indian woman, were arrested at the site in Green Lane following intelligence that they were working illegally as delivery drivers in the gig economy. Currently, companies hiring gig economy and zero-hours workers are not legally required to check the status of these workers, but the government's changing the law so illegal working checks are expanded to bring them in line with other employers. And finally, the Telegraph is set to be sold to a transatlantic group led by Redbird Capital, ending 2 years of uncertainty over its future. The founder of the US private equity firm has signed a preliminary £500 million deal to take control of the publisher, with an additional agreement to deliver a significant investment in journalism. The deal comes after the government blocked a previous takeover attempt by Redbird last year amid political backlash over press freedom concerns. Those are the latest headlines for now. More from me at 3:30.
Thank you, Tatiana. Excellent as ever. Now, what a day of news, and it starts with this. Donald Trump has dropped a huge bombshell on Brussels by slapping the European Union with 50% trade tariffs. Now, the US president blasted on Truth Social. Our discussions with them are going nowhere, and warned that the tariffs, which Britain, of course, will dodge thanks to Brexit, start as soon as June the 1st. I put it to you, this is the ultimate Brexit bonus. But I'm joined now by GBNews political editor Christopher Hope. Chris, another bombshell from the Trump camp, but those who've been following this shouldn't be too surprised. He's been unbridled in his contempt towards the European Union compared to the mafia. He called them a racket. He said they've been specifically set up to destroy the American economy since the beginning. There's a showdown this afternoon, UK time 4:30, when his trade envoy walks into the building there in Brussels, but he's dropped the first card, and what a bombshell.
Absolutely. Martin, great to see you back in the studio, of course. Yeah, well, let's go back to the 2nd of April this year. That was Liberation Day. That's the last moment we had the time we had these big tariffs being imposed. The markets tanked. ISAs were underwater. A big problem for so many British investors, not least, and globally. And since then, guess what? The market's now above where they were.
It all bounced back.
Before Liberation Day. I wonder whether that's what's driving the reaction to this. Yes, dramatic 50% tariffs on European Union exports to the States, but markets only off by 1%. But look at the language here. The EU, he says, formed for the primary purpose, Martin. He says, of taking advantage of the United States on trade has been very difficult to deal with, he says. There are powerful trade barriers, VAT taxes, corporate penalties, non-monetary trade barriers, monetary manipulation, unfair and unjustified lawsuits against American companies have led to a trade deficit of $250 million a year. Discussions are going nowhere. Therefore, I'm recommending a straightforward 50% tariffs on EU starting on June the 1st, a week on Sunday. Extraordinary, dramatic. Where does it leave us now? Well, we're in a week of this deal being done on Monday, this Brexit deal. We'll be paying shortly money to access the single market, but not be part of it, be a rule taker, not a rule maker. Is that wise? Will Keir Starmer be sitting back on this weekend in the garden pondering, should I be that close now to the EU, given what's happening here?
And I wonder if Keir Starmer might say, wow, what a Brexit bonus this is. Stick with us, Chris. I want to get straight into my next guest now because I'm joined by one of the Spartans of Brexit, former Conservative Minister Steve Baker. Steve, a pleasure to have your company. Are you surprised about this? You might be shocked, but not surprised. Donald Trump has been open in his contempt for the European Union. This is where the rubber hits the road. 4:30 today, the trade talks begin in earnest, in person, in Brussels. Here's the big question. Do you think the European Union are foolhardy enough or brazen enough to attempt to go for a trade war with the United States?
Well, Martin, good afternoon. And they may well be brazen enough and foolhardy enough to do it. But just wait until President Trump finds out that Keir Starmer is opting the UK into a common agri-food area with the EU as rule takers, opting us into the EU's electricity market, opting us into their EU emissions trading scheme and their carbon border adjustment mechanism. I would think he's going to slap tariffs on us.
Wow, that is something, you know, that's why we get you on. What a chess move ahead. You're absolutely right. We could be caught in the crossfire of this without even knowing it because of that reset deal earlier on. Superb point, well made. And look, we saw last time the Chinese meltdown, the tariffs, the market recovered. In fact, it went above where it was. So this is a standard copybook now. Donald Trump goes all in, as it were. The poker stakes are high. And what happens next is the huge question.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So I expect the United States will notice that we have agreed to be under the jurisdiction of the EU, contrary to many of the obligations in our trade agreements. You know, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, India, the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership countries, that Pacific Rim, they all require us to have control of our own regulatory environment. And what I think has happened here is the governing elite never liked Brexit, we know that, and they've just kind of thrown the points on the tracks to steer us back into the European Union. Well, in a sense, the good news is the legal text of the deal was not yet agreed. Well, Keir Starmer's got a chance to change course here, but what is he going to do when President Trump works out that Starmer's government has chosen the European Union over the well-established trade policy which we've set in train and which President Trump was relying on? You know, as I said last week, this is creating an absolute mess. And it's a mess of the government's choosing because they haven't been resolute in accepting Brexit. And you know, this is the kind of thing which is going to happen.
OK, Steve Baker, I'm joined in the studio by Chris Hope, our political editor. He's got a question for you.
But Steve Baker, of course, you were a Spartan during the Brexit years, but isn't Keir Starmer maybe doing what he should do? He's navigating a path between the rock and a hard place. The rock being America. He's done his deal there of sorts, a limited trade deal with the States. He's getting closer, but not signing up to giving away too much sovereignty to the EU. And he carries down the middle. This is not exactly where a UK PM has to be. You can't really make the choice. The choice now is to be independent between those two trading blocs.
Well, Chris, I can see why you'd say that, But the truth is, the UK chose that we would have an independent regulatory policy, including on agri-food, and then Keir Starmer's opted us into it. And that does, I think, put us very clearly in breach of our free trade agreement obligations. And this is the problem with politics. You know, Keir Starmer loves the EU, would like to rejoin the EU, and he's now sort of partially taken us back in, including on energy as well as agri-food. And it makes a mockery, really, of the trade strategy which he seemed to have embraced last week, the week before, with India and the United States. And I'm afraid sometimes you do have to choose. Let's not forget that what President Trump is trying to do is to
Steve, I'm afraid I have to interrupt you. You've been excellent, but we have some breaking news. I have to move on. And we've got breaking news now. Joining us live from Dover is our Homeland Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, what's the latest?
Well, you're looking at the entrance to Dover Harbour as the Border Force vessel Ranger just rounds the entrance to Dover Harbour, having picked up a group of migrants from a small boat in the middle of the channel in some pretty choppy conditions, it has to be said. It's the perfect illustration as Ranger rounds the corner and into the main entrance of Dover Harbour of just what senior maritime security sources were telling GB News earlier today, which was that people smuggling gangs are taking increasing risks with the lives of migrants, pushing these boats out into the channel in conditions that aren't suitable for passage in these flimsy boats. They can just about do it, of course, when it's flat calm, but any time you get swells out there in the channel, then you get very difficult going for these migrants. Martin, we have had 3 migrant deaths this week alone in separate incidents, and it's an illustration, say, these senior maritime security sources, of the reckless behaviour of some of the people smuggling gangs. You've got a situation where there are the more established gangs. They've been doing it a long time. I hate to use the word professional, but they are. You know, they even employ meteorologists to give them the exact weather conditions that are conducive to pushing these boats out. But there are other gangs that have tried to muscle their way in there as well, that charge cheaper prices, that source their boats from those sort of backstreet factories in China that are not as robust as some. I mean, none of them are really that robust, but some of the boats, as I say, you know, are really quite dangerous and flimsy in nature. And these gangs, they don't employ meteorologists, they don't care, they just look out the window. If it looks kind of doable, then they'll try and shove these boats out. And that's what we've seen today with this boat in the middle of the channel with swells of 1.5 meters as the Border Force vessel Ranger tried to get those migrants off that boat. There was a Coast Guard plane actually sent up because they were so concerned about the potential for this boat to capsize, for migrants to end up in the water. So they had a Coast Guard plane up circling round, monitoring from above as that operation got underway. But as you say, this is now live pictures of the Border Force vessel Ranger entering its main area here at Dover Harbour, next to the migrant processing centre, with, we think, about another 35 to 40 migrants on board who were taken from that small migrant boat just a little earlier. And that is going to take us over 900 in terms of the number of migrants who have made that journey from France, that illegal journey from the shores of northern France to the UK in just this past week. Another record week, with on Wednesday, of course, you'll remember, as we reported on this, Martin, some 825 migrants on that single day alone. Nothing like that today, just the one boat, but that is because the conditions are so dangerous. But there are still those people smuggling gangs willing to take that risk it paid off for them on this occasion. But as I say, on 3 occasions just this week, it didn't pay off in terms of 3 migrants losing their lives. So you're looking once again at those live shots here on GB News down here in Dover, bringing you the daily response in terms of border force to the migrant crisis out in the English Channel, as yet another illegal incursion into UK waters has been responded to. Those individuals picked up and brought to Dover for processing and the inevitable entry into our UK asylum system. Martin, this year alone, and we are of course only into May, more than 13,000 migrants have crossed the English Channel. We are heading for a record year by the end of this year in terms of those who have crossed.
And Mark White, we can see now the Border Force craft rapidly approaching that area on Dover docks. Just talk our viewers through what happens next. I know this area very well. They'll be led ashore. It's coming into vision now, so we'll have an idea of the numbers on board. They'll be going down that gangplank, and there's a containment centre, a processing centre right there on the harbour side, isn't there, Mark? And they'll be straight into the system. They'll be, in effect, let's be blunt about this, the red carpet will start to be rolled out to them.
Yeah, I mean, what you're seeing at the moment, I don't know if Uche can go just a little wider on the shot, because just to the side of that Border Force vessel is a cruise ship that's here in Dover Harbour. It, you know, is what a contrast, you know, to see that huge cruise ship next to this Border Force vessel with these illegal migrants who've come across the channel. And this Border Force vessel Ranger now coming into an area of Dover Harbour known as the Western Jetfoil, and it's here that you're quite right, Martin, all of the apparatus has been set up and has been going now for years with a view to dealing with processing these migrants. There is a big grey porta-cabin, a couple of those structures actually, where once that boat comes in, it then comes to the sort of the quayside by that gangway. Final checks are made, probably takes about 10 to 15 minutes or so, and then we start to see the migrants getting offloaded up the gangway, and the first thing that happens to them once they hand over the life jackets, probably supplied by the French or even us. Controversially, it's another aspect of this migrant crisis that has people scratching their head, concerned that what's actually happening out there is that these small boat crossings are being enabled by that kind of thing. But anyway, those life jackets will be handed back over. The migrants themselves will then be checked. They'll be arrested effectively under immigration offences, despite what the government might term the crossing of the English Channel as now, and they term it normally as irregular migration. This is an illegal incursion into the UK. Laws have been passed that make it a criminal offence for anyone to enter the UK not through the designated border with or without that identification. So it is an illegal incursion into UK waters. Those migrants being brought to Dover now, they will have their fingerprints taken, they will be briefly questioned, they will of course be checked to make sure that they are medically fit. There are medics on standby for them as well. And then of course they're taken, Martin, just down the road to a bigger processing facility at Manston. There they're processed again further checks on the migrants for some 24 to 48 hours, and then after that they are shipped off to anywhere potentially in the country, to a hotel near you potentially, because we know that there are more than 32,000, I think at last count, migrants in hotels across the country. The number, we're told, is coming down, but it's still an issue that affects so many hundreds of hotels right around the country that have seen those facilities, amenities for the local community taken out of everyday use and used sometimes for years on end by these migrants. The government say they want to change that, but what does that mean? It means that those people that are about to get off this Border Force vessel Ranger might spend a few weeks, a month or two in a hotel, but then they go off into local authority care, they go into local authority housing stock, rented sector, all kinds of accommodation that's then not available for people elsewhere in the UK in their local authority area, in their catchment area. If they're hoping for social housing, a council house or whatever, they are increasingly limited in availability because they are being used by these migrants coming across the English Channel, Martin.
Mark White, I know that dockside down there very well. There's an incredible array of sort of deflated, spent dinghies, and they're the ones that made it ashore. And just about a mile down the road, there's that incredible concreted area behind high fences, of course, where all the boats are stored. Pile after pile after pile of them, Mark White, and they're the ones that made it across. It isn't a huge conversation we're going to continue to have now, Mark, is the perilous sea conditions. Just looking at that now, you and I both know those waters are not what you would consider to be deemed to be seaworthy or safe for a flimsy, inflatable dinghy. And it just reinforces that point, Mark White. The people smugglers do not give a damn about the safety of anybody on board there. So long as they've got their money in their hands, they couldn't care less. And then there's a whole conversation then, Mark White, about the British taxpayer sending these vessels out to become almost a dependable, de facto, reliant rescue service. Surely that acts as a pull factor. The people smugglers know if these boats go into peril, they're still going to be ferried ashore.
And that's why I think so many people that view these images feel that it is deeply unfair that we have a system, an asylum system, that is there to offer refuge to those who may be fleeing very terrible circumstances, and they see people who are coming across, and many of them, because we've spoken to them over the months and years, are people that tell me and have told other reporters that it's not a war zone that they're fleeing, but it's a better life that they're seeking in the UK. I don't blame them for that, for wanting to be mobile and to achieve that better life. But of course, in doing that, they are breaking the law by paying criminal gangs, seeking out criminal gangs, and we must never take away the personal responsibility that these people have got to have for the actions in seeking out criminal gangs, paying them thousands of pounds to smuggle them across the English Channel, try to circumvent our borders, and then enter an asylum system that for many of them it was never set up really to deal with those particular individuals who are coming here for economic migration purposes and not necessarily fleeing a war zone. Now, that is not to say that there aren't those coming across on these small boats who are leaving very terrible conditions behind, and in some cases leaving a war zone behind as well. But I have to say, in all honesty, over the years of speaking to many, many migrants who've come across to this country, either in France or here in the UK, the vast majority have always told me that they are coming to get a job and to find a better life, and it's not a war zone that they're fleeing. We should just say you probably see some yellow vested personnel down there now, Border Force personnel who are preparing to receive these small boat migrants as they come off the Border Force vessel Ranger. It is a well-rehearsed routine that they go through as they get them up that gangway and into processing. But it can take a good 10 or 15 minutes. It just depends. In fact, I think I'm seeing people now coming up the gangway itself. So they were a lot quicker than sometimes they are, but you're watching this live now on GB News. Just one crossing today because of the weather conditions out there in the channel, but that small boat contingent of, we think, somewhere between 35 and 40 migrants who were pushed out by the people smugglers into the channel, made it across despite the conditions. And as I stand here on the cliff tops overlooking Dover Harbour, I'm feeling the wind picking up significantly. It was due to close in. This weather front coming in from the Atlantic was due to start closing in by mid-afternoon, and that is indeed what's happening. Looking out to sea as well, I can see the whitecaps now out in the channel, stirred up by the increasing winds out there in the channel. Had they still been out in the channel at this time, they would have been in significant difficulty. It was a difficult enough and long crossing as it was. But as I say, they made it. Many people will be very angry, Martin, that they made it. But they're here, and it's part of a process, whether we like it or not, that this government and the authorities will go through now to check on the claims made by these people for asylum, whether they're deemed to be genuine or not.
Mark White, I just want to commend you on the reporting and commend the cameraman. This is astonishing footage. We can see this operation live as it happens, and it's really, really fascinating what happens next, because you and I both know we've been down there. This is now a well-oiled machine. Down the gangplank, they give them blankets. They go straight into a containment centre behind very high metal walls. I've been down there myself. A lot of citizen journalists, actually, have had restraining orders to ban them from the entire port of Dover for trying to film this. The authorities have a very, very hush-hush attitude towards this. They would rather we didn't see this kind of stuff, but that's why GB News spends so much time and resources down there. This is news as it happens. And now they'll be sent in, they'll be processed, they'll be fed, they'll be clothed, and as you say, they'll be given freebies. They'll be beginning their journey towards Hotel Britannia, where the rooms are free, the food is free, and the taxpayer picks up the bill.
Yeah, and my cameraman Uche thanks you for his thanks, and he's telling me now, because he can get a better shot than I can see with my old eyes, but he says the first group have gone into that processing centre. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised, Martin, if my contact, one of my contacts, sends me a video or two of that journey across the channel, because that's what happens. It's part of the deal with the people smugglers that one or two individuals on these boats will document their journey, will probably take a video of their hotel, their new hotel as well, all designed to get other people across the English Channel to take up the offer from the people smugglers.
Mark White, once again, huge commendation to you and our cameraman there. Fantastic footage, breaking news there. A Border Force craft landing at Dover, and so begins the inexorable process of once again rolling out the red carpet for those arrivals. Mark White, brilliant stuff. Thank you very, very much for joining us, and we're sure to cross to you later on with more details as they emerge. Thank you. Now, moving on to another huge story. Two men with paranoid schizophrenia stabbed members of the public in separate attacks week before Valdo Callaghan's killings in Nottingham, and all were under the care of the same NHS trust. Now, of course, the students Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar and the school caretaker Ian Coates was stabbed to death by Callacane on 13th of June 2023. And now the families of the victims will be returning to Nottingham next month to mark the second anniversary as the public inquiry begins. And I'm delighted to say I'm now joined by Emma Webber, the mother of Daubney Webber, who of course was killed in those Nottingham attacks. Emma, it's always a pleasure to see you 2 years on, an emotional return to the site, as it were, and it's not just to mark the moment, which is, of course, is absolutely the right thing to do. It's to highlight what you think is still a systemic abandonment and a culture of silence around the case. Tell us more.
Yeah, I think that the authorities, the agencies, the organisations look the other way and continue to look the other way with us. So we as the three families, and we will be inviting anyone in Nottingham and certainly the three survivors and their families as well to join us. And we're going to do our own thing because we've had nothing, no plans, no invitations, no support from either the leader of the council or the leader of the university or vice chancellor of the university. And it's so wrong. It's so painful. I can't put into words, I'm sure you don't expect me to, how it feels going there. But we will announce our times and plans soon. We need to talk to Grace's mum and dad and Ian's boys and family. And like I say, the survivors that I'm delighted to say I met two of them recently at the Houses of Commons. So, yeah, that's 3 weeks today, actually, the 13th.
Well, Dr. Sanjoy Kumar is joining me in the studio at 5 o'clock, and I've met a bunch of you now, and I think you're amazing people, and I know you're not going to stop. You won't stop, will you? And this march, whatever it becomes, this gathering, this vital memento on June the 13th, I think is vital, because they will just try and turn a blind eye. They will just try and ignore it and hope it goes away. But I know you, I know the families, that ain't going to happen.
No, it's not. And when will they listen? When will they hear us? When will they just start doing the right thing, doing their jobs properly and admitting their faults? The inquiry was formally begun yesterday by Judge Deborah Taylor, and there's a website. There's her video message. And that's one part of it, Martin, and it will, whatever, we do, we will make sure that the doctors, the police, the CPS, anyone and everyone who has failed will be held to account. But it's beyond that. It goes way beyond that. There have been more revelations this week. And that individual, that monster, got away with murder, and if it's the last thing I do, I will disprove that he was fully diminished. So it's the beginning of the fight. It's the fight for justice. The inquiry is one thing. Remembering my beautiful boy and Grace and Ian is another. Making change is another, lasting change. But holding those to account, because lessons won't be learned, because they never have been.
And Emma, you've said that you would welcome survivors to come along from this. Would you mind if I came along? I would love to come along.
Of course, I'd be honoured. I'd be honoured, and we have to have hope, have to be positive, and there's more good than bad out there, because we get so much strength from the people, the community of Nottingham and surrounding areas still, and it feels like all I do sometimes is make a lot of noise and fuss, but I won't stop doing that, because I have to. But I don't want the wonderful people that live in that city and around that area to ever think that I hate anything to do with them. I don't. I have little regard for those who have failed in senior positions, but the city deserves better. We deserve better as victims. And as I've said before, I took my precious child to a city and a university that were not safe to have him.
Yeah, a city I grew up in, and, a city I sometimes mourn for what it's become. Emma Webber, what can I say? You always blow me away with your strength, and just how amazing you are And I'll be honoured to join you on the 13th, just to walk with you and support you. And we just got to keep pushing a light on this and making sure you get what you and the other survivors deserve. Thank you.
Oh, we won't go away. Thank you, Martin.
Well, delight. Now, Dr. Susan Elcock, the Deputy Chief Executive and the Executive Medical Director of Nottinghamshire Healthcare, says this. Whilst we are unable to comment on individual cases due to patient confidentiality, I want to assure people that following any serious incidents, there is a robust review process which includes an initial management review to ensure any immediate learning and action takes place. Well, there's lots more still to come to you now at 4 o'clock, including next, Keir Starmer has surrendered the Chagos Islands for £30 billion. I will reveal the astonishing things that could have been spent otherwise £30 billion on. You would not want to miss what that money could have bought for you here in Britain. Stay tuned, that's next.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. One more fine day before the weather changes quite a bit for the weekends. The wet weather, in fact, already moving in later today across parts of Northern Ireland, courtesy of these weather fronts finally pushing away the high pressure that's brought many of us a fine spell through this week. And it's still pretty good out there today. Some thickening cloud across southern counties may produce 1 or 2 showers, but generally dry and bright, some good spells of sunshine. But it is clouding over across western Scotland, and there's those weather fronts bringing rain to Northern Ireland, slowly trickling in, getting towards Belfast by the middle of the afternoon. Temperature-wise, well, in the sunny spells, we could still get to 22, maybe 23 Celsius. Cooler around some coasts and where it is predominantly cloudy, and certainly feeling cooler as the rain seeps its way into Northern Ireland and trickles into western Scotland during this evening. Much of Scotland will stay fine through the evening rush hour, but that rain will be pushing on to the west coast. It's going to be a damp end to the day across Northern Ireland, and that rain spreading into parts of north and west Wales too. Further south and east, staying dry and fine, but even here it is going to cloud over, and that rain will be working into pretty much all areas as we go through the night. So if you're heading out this evening, just be prepared for that rain to be creeping its way across many western areas, getting to eastern England, eastern Scotland through the early hours, maybe even the odd heavier burst here and there. So a very different night, a very damp night and a very mild night. Last night we got down to -5 in Scotland. Tonight, most of us staying in double figures. So it will be a cold start to the weekend, but it will be a dull and a damp start. Now, this main area of rain is going to shimmy away pretty smartly. So for most places, tomorrow's a brightening up kind of day. There'll be some lifting of the cloud, maybe even a few sunny spells, but that could spark some heavy showers, perhaps over eastern England, northeast Scotland, 1 or 2 for Northern Ireland. So yes, there'll be some showers, but it should brighten up as we go through Saturday.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 25 and 24, there's a collision with one lane closed. Drivers should expect normal conditions around 4:45 this afternoon. In Kent, there's a collision on the A249 northbound near the junction with the M2, leaving a lane closed. Wiltshire drivers face delays on the A303 westbound between the A345 and A36 due to congestion, with normal conditions anticipated around 5:05 this evening. And on the trains, Transport for Wales reports no services between Hereford and Craven Arms, while East Midlands Railway faces disruption at St Albans City. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:32. You're with me, 42, beg your pardon. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, fury continues after Sir Keir Starmer signed a £30 billion surrender deal, handing over the sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. But what could that £30 billion have bought us instead? Let's take a look. For starters, you get 20 years of winter fuel allowance at £1.5 billion a year. You get 60 years of the farmers' inheritance tax raid at £500 million a year. And you get 17.5 million energy bills paid at the new off-gem rate of £1,720 per household. But it gets better, because if you fancy some new Infrastructure, well, 30 billion quid could buy you 3 new super prisons, and that is 30,000 prison spaces. It could even get you a new nuclear power plant, because 26 billion quid was the price of Hinkley C. And that's not all. What about some personnel, some key workers? Well, let's carry on. £30 billion would pay for, wait for it, 1 million new nurses at £30,000 each. Now, that sounds astonishing. Bear in mind, a billion has got 9 zeros, and 30,000 goes into it a million times. And it would also get you 1.2 million new soldiers at £25,200 a pop, and 1.4 million new coppers at £21,402 each. And while we're at it, it would also get you 947,867 new teachers at just over 31.5 grand a pop. That is where that money could have been spent. Instead, the moolah is going to Mauritius. Well, let's find out now how a British pensioner feels about that. GB News viewer Fergus McCann. Fergus, welcome to the show. How does it make you feel, mate, when you hear those figures? 20 years worth of winter fuel out. Instead, it's all going to Mauritius.
Well, what I did all last winter, I got into my bed with a jumper on and wrapped myself in the duvet for the whole winter because it was really cold. And now suddenly we've got sunlight, briefly. I've been watching, I have to say, I can't bear the fact that President Starmer's had to throw me off his channel twice this week, which I find really funny. But watching the harrowing stories you've been covering, I've just been in Rhodes in Greece for 2 weeks, listening and watching you all the time on my phone. So I know what's going on. And I'm watching the Angela fight with Rachel. Boom, boom, boom. It's fascinating. But I still want myself to have the winter fuel payment, thank you. I still want to get my food cheaper. And the prices are going up. Never mind, Ed Miliband is going to make us rich in about 70 years. He's not. It's like, oh my God, can't stand it, any of it.
Fergus, you sound slightly grizzled about it. Who can blame you? And I'm sorry to have ruined your holiday in Rhodes by having to stare at my ugly mush when you should be enjoying the sun, the sand, and the feta cheese and the kebabs, mate.
I just listened. Oh, do you know what they've done? Do you know what they've done with their illegal migrants in Greece? It's been a bit of a scandal. They're not allowed to come across into Greece from Turkey. And they've been piercing the boats and letting them drown, which is not nice. And I feel so sorry for those people coming over. I really feel sorry for them, because a lot of them are really genuine. But the government's doing nothing.
And look, nobody wants anything like that. But the precise point, you may well have seen Mark White's footage from a short while ago of a Border Force vessel bringing yet more illegal immigrants ashore. And that's another thing. This costs a huge sum of money. We're spending £6 billion on the asylum system. And that is going up. It could be 4 million, 6 million, we don't really know, pounds per day on hotels. And back to the conversation about the Chagos Islands. Do you feel this was a deal we simply didn't need to do? Or, as Sir Keir Starmer said, as the Defence Secretary said, we were going to be taken to court anyway, so it was best to get out while we could?
No, it's this weird international court, which means nothing, because nobody else obeys it. This International Criminal Court. It's that thing, what can we give away? How can we destroy all of the beauties of Britain? And I'm talking about every race here, every culture here, all the people. I go to Gravesend a lot, and it's a very Sikh place, and they're gorgeous people. They're lovely. So it's not about race. It's about some weird thing. Let's destroy Britain. I remember, you won't, you're far too young, Uganda decided to throw out their Asians. 70,000 of them came here. Oh, you do? Oh, you must be that old then. And they are so successful here. I had a barber who was one of them, and he's a millionaire now. That is the right people. I don't care what colour they are, but let them have a good chance.
You're exactly right. And, you know, it's about integration. It's about welcoming those who want to work and put the endeavour into the country. That makes a valuable contribution to Britain. Fergus McCann, we have to leave it there. And we'll let you now get back to a cup of tea and continue, no doubt, to watch the show. A pleasure to have your company, Fergus. Mine, now you go. Now, next, look away now if you're a Man United fan, because we'll be crossing to Tottenham as they celebrate winning the Europa League. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Last night it was won by Austria, a guy called JJ, who actually appeared on The Voice in the UK a couple of years ago. Very, very good singer, but like I say, a lot of the evening was focused around Israel. Israel won a huge amount of the public vote. Obviously, the way the system works on Eurovision is the juries, the professionals get together, they sort of delegate the scores out amongst the other countries, and then the public have their say. Israel were middling in the leaderboard before the public vote, and they shot to the top, and they were right at the top, right to the end. And Austria just picked them at the final moment. But there was a lot of controversy last night that didn't quite make it onto screens about Israel as well. We had 3 protesters that were detained for trying to burst onto the stage during Israel's performance.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, I don't need to delve into the political issues that surround that.
The thing with these idiots from Youth Action, I think it's a 27-year-old and a 22-year-old. Have we got a clip of this? Can we show that? Yes.
Right, yeah, so they weren't arrested, they were detained by organisers at the time and then released, and then a Basel police spokesperson said it's up to the organiser now if they want to press charges about this.
You know what annoys me about this, though, Alex, is Yuval's in her 20s. She's a survivor of the Nova Music Festival on October the 7th. She hid under the bodies of her mates for 8 hours. What she's achieved is amazing. Ignore the politics. And these idiots in their 20s behaving like that to this woman that survived all those horrors.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Nigel is back.
Good evening.
Unfiltered.
Are these proposals bold enough?
Uncompromising.
Will it bring growth?
Unmissable.
We as a country are brilliant.
Nigel Farage returns. Coming soon. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:51. You're with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now, look away, Man United fans, because Tottenham Hotspur fans will be filling the streets of North London as we speak as their victorious players take to the streets on the open-top bus to celebrate their Europa League triumph on Wednesday. Got to be said, it was one of the worst cup finals of all time. Nevertheless, here's our national reporter, Charlie Peters, who is on the ground there. Charlie, over to you.
Afternoon, Martin, and welcome to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium off White Hart Lane, the world-famous home of the Spurs, where, as you say, after a pretty torrid game on Wednesday night, Tottenham Hotspur were victorious, and they're celebrating here today, winning the Europa League, their 4th European Cup, their 3rd UEFA Cup, and they have been gathering in their thousands here for hours already. The crowds here are quite extraordinary, Martin, all the way around. We've got people lining the street. I have to say, it's a very bad day if you're waiting for a bus here, because the people on there are extremely excited to be here. Thousands all over the street, just showing for you, Martin, the emotion of sport, the emotion of football. So many people here have never seen Tottenham win a trophy, or the last time they did, it was in 2008. And they might be 17th in the league, Martin, but that means nothing now because they've come through victorious. I'm joined now by some Spurs fans who are celebrating. How does this feel for you, mate?
This means everything. We've waited 17 years for this moment, and look at the party we've caused. To Man United, this wouldn't have meant anything. All it would have been was money. To us, and I think everyone here will agree, this means absolutely everything. Like, look, this isn't even the biggest trophy in Europe, and look at the party we're having because of it. We've had to wait a long time, and we're making the most of it.
Well, he's fallen over there almost, but yeah, Martin, we're expecting tens of thousands here today. And as you come with me now, all the way down the Tottenham High Road, we can see fans gathering with their flags. There's a stage behind us where we're expecting the players to gather later, and there are people above, serious crowds gathering here. People are just so elated with that victory. And Martin, we spoke about the emotion of the sport. For so many people here, this is a chance to celebrate after so many years of pain, so many years of hurt. This year, it's Tottenham's year.
Well, Charlie Beats, after 17 years of pain and misery and waiting, I'd be having a bigger party than that. I've been to more fun funerals. Anyway, good luck to them, Spurs. I'm not at all bitter being a Nottingham Forest fan. All eyes on the City ground. 4 o'clock, we're going to do Chelsea and get into a real European Cup. I digress. Still to come, as Donald Trump threatens the European Union with 50% tariffs. Should we be grateful for Brexit? Let's be honest, it was the biggest Brexit bonus of all. We've dodged the bullet on Trump's European Union tariffs. That's next. Don't go anywhere. All the analysis, all the expertise with me, Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel. Now it's time for your weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Yes, time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine Friday for many, but the weather is on the change for the weekend. Wet weather arriving tonight. It's more mixed through the weekend, some showers, but there'll still be some fine weather on the horizon. Now, low pressure and weather fronts are edging in from the Atlantic. That's what's bringing the change, kicking away the high pressure that's been dominating. Weather fronts already bringing rain across Northern Ireland. That'll trickle into Western Scotland this evening, Western England and Wales before midnight, and then spread to pretty much all areas by the time we get to first thing on Saturday morning. With the cloud and the rain moving in, it is going to be much, much milder tonight. Last night, we got down to -5 in parts of Scotland. Most towns and cities staying in double digits overnight. So it'll be a mild but fairly dull, dismal, damp start to the bank holiday weekend. Rain and drizzle in most areas, slowly edging away to the east, but southeast England, East Anglia, pretty soggy at first thing. Something a bit drier, trying to get into parts of Wales by this time and Northern Ireland. But here too, further showers coming in. A fairly dull, dismal start across much of Scotland also. Again, this zone of rain will be heading its way away up across the Northern Isles, where it may linger into the afternoon in Shetland. But mostly it's pushing out into the North Sea. So for many of us, actually it'll get drier through the morning and slowly start to brighten up. And the afternoon may well bring some sunny spells across parts of central and eastern England, especially northeast Scotland. In these eastern areas, though, where it does brighten up, we could see some heavy showers breaking out. We could see some lively downpours in Northern Ireland too. They'll be very hit and miss. In the sunny spells, still feeling quite warm, quite humid as temperatures get up over 20 degrees Celsius. A fresher feel, though, by Sunday. The wind's picking up, a blustery, gusty day across northern areas, particularly so in western Scotland. Plenty of showers packing in here as well. Temperatures won't be as high, but still largely fine across East Anglia and the southeast, where we should see highs over 20 Celsius. Bye for now.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Expect delays on the A9 northbound at Raigmore Interchange due to a broken down vehicle, so proceed with caution. There is congestion on the M4 westbound between junction 38 at Margam and junction 45 at Innisforgan. Additionally, traffic is slowing on the A1M heading southbound between junction 41 and junction 40OH, with delays expected until this afternoon. On the trains, there are disruptions with no trains between Hereford and Craven Arms on Transport for Wales, as well as issues in St Albans City affecting East Midlands railway services. Stay informed with the latest road and rail updates, and for more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
You could be driving away with this brand new Elneg Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. and a happy Friday to you, and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show. Here on GB News, we're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's action-packed show, Donald Trump has dropped a huge bombshell on Brussels by slapping the European Union with a whopping 50% trade tariff. Donald Trump blasted on Truth Social our discussions with them are going nowhere and warned the tariffs, which Britain will dodge thanks to Brexit, start on June the 1st.
No surrender! No retreat! No surrender! No retreat! No surrender!
And the true cost of the Chagos Islands deal is being revealed, and it could be as high as £30 billion, not the £3.4 billion that Keir Starmer told us yesterday. And astonishing analysis by GB News today reveals that that would pay for 1 million new nurses. That's correct, 1 million new nurses, a new nuclear power plant, or even enough winter fuel allowance to keep British pensioners warm for 20 years. Should we really be sending the moolah to Mauritius, or should charity begin at home? And as you can see on your screens there with the beautiful afro hair, the relentless campaigner Beatrice Pomp. She's the lawyer that had that dramatic 11th hour intervention. She joins me later on today's show. And the families of those murdered by the triple killer Valdo Calacane are to emotionally return to the site of the killings to mark their second anniversary. Earlier on today on the show, I was joined by the mother of Barnaby Webber, and later I'll be joined by the father of Grace O'Malley Kumar to highlight what they call a systemic lack of care, compassion and respect. And GB News viewers were outraged earlier this week when a little ship's flotilla to mark the 85th anniversary of the Dunkirk evacuation was diverted due to a dinghy rescue in the Channel. On today's show, I'll be joined by the grandson of a British Army veteran who was evacuated from Dunkirk 85 years ago to get his thoughts. You would not want to miss it. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. £3.4 billion, we were told by the Prime Minister yesterday, was the cost of the Chagos deal. He was fact-checked in the press conference, and it became 10 billion from a journalist. And overnight, further analysis, when you look at the increased inflation rate of payments in future years, plus extra aid to Mauritius, the true figure could be £30 billion. On the show today, I'll detail how that could have been spent in the United Kingdom. 3 prisons, be quite nice, wouldn't it? As we're releasing so many people early, 3 new super prisons could be built for 30 billion quid. That's enough to get 30,000 people back behind bars where they belong. Instead, we're giving the money away to Mauritius. What about 20 years' worth? 20 years' worth of winter fuel allowance? Well, that's what this is. £1.5 billion per year. That adds up to a heck of a lot of pensioners who could be kept warm instead of doing a giveaway to Mauritius. How does that make you feel? Get in touch, usual ways, gbnews.com/you'll say. Now it's your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories. President Donald Trump says he's recommending imposing 50% tariffs on goods from the European Union being imported to the United States starting on the 1st of June. Our discussions with Brussels are going nowhere, he said in a post on social media today. The announcement marks an escalation of Trump's trade war with the EU, which currently has a 10% tariff on all goods being brought into America. The EU Commission declined to comment, saying it would wait for a phone call between the EU trade chief and his US counterpart today. The president also threatened to impose a 25% import tax on iPhones not manufactured in America. Meanwhile, President Trump is calling for the UK to increase and incentivise North Sea oil drilling. Writing on Truth Social, he says our negotiated deal with the United Kingdom is working out well for all. I strongly recommend to them, however, that in order to get their energy costs down, they stop with the costly and unsightly windmills and incentivise modernised drilling in the North Sea, where large amounts of oil lay waiting to be taken. That says energy bills in the UK will fall by 7% in July, the first drop for a year. It means a household using a typical amount of gas and electricity will see their annual bill fall by £129. Households are being urged to shop around for cheaper energy deals despite prices falling from July. Ofgem says shopping around could lead to a £200 annual saving, but anyone currently on a fixed deal will not benefit from the fall this summer. The regulator's price cap sets the maximum that suppliers can charge for each unit of energy, affecting 21 million households in England, Scotland and Wales. Charities say cheaper bills are welcome, but many people still struggle to pay, with millions of customers collectively owing about £4 billion to suppliers. Under-Secretary of State at the Department for Energy Security, Miata Fanbula, says it's a big relief for families under pressure with the cost of living, but needs to go further.
But we're really clear that we have to continue the work of getting bills down for good. And the only way we're going to do that is to break our reliance on global fossil fuel markets we have no control over and deliver clean, homegrown energy. And we are working flat out to deliver that. And we're also really clear that as we make that transition, we've got to do the job of supporting households. And that's why we're looking to expand the Warm Homes discount to over 6 million households. And that's why we're doing the work of upgrading hundreds of thousands of homes to make them warmer and cheaper to run.
Harvard is suing the Trump administration after it revoked the university's ability to enroll international students. In the lawsuit filed in Boston, the university called the administration's actions a blatant violation of the law. It comes a day after officials at the Department of Homeland Security said they would be revoking Harvard's access to student visa programs. The Trump administration says Harvard has not done enough to fight anti-Semitism and change its hiring and admissions practices, allegations that the university has strongly denied. A major incident's been declared as firefighters battle a large blaze at a recycling warehouse in Northamptonshire. Emergency crews were called to the scene at Sanders Lodge Industrial Estate in Rushden at about 6:30 this morning. Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue Service said it's receiving cross-border support from Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue Service and anticipates crews will remain at the scene for the rest of the weekend. NFRS said the fire involves a large quantity of plastic. 9 people suspected of working illegally in the UK have been arrested after Home Office immigration enforcement officers descended on a Surrey caravan park on Tuesday morning. The individuals, 5 Brazilian men, 1 Brazilian woman, 2 Indian men and an Indian woman, were arrested at the site in Green Lane following intelligence they were working illegally as delivery drivers in the gig economy. Currently, companies hiring gig economy and zero-hours workers are not legally required to check the status of these workers. But the government's changing the law, so illegal working checks are expanded to bring them in line with other employers. Some breaking news now. 2 teenagers have pleaded guilty to the murder of a 14-year-old boy who was attacked with machetes on a bus in south-east London. Caleb Bukasa was stabbed 27 times as he travelled home on a Route 472 bus in Woolwich on the 7th of January. More on this in the next hour. Finally, the Telegraph is set to be sold to a transatlantic group led by Redbird Capital, ending 2 years of uncertainty over its future. The founder of the US private equity firm has signed a preliminary £500 million deal to take control of the publisher, with an additional agreement to deliver a significant investment in journalism. The deal comes after the government blocked a previous takeover attempt by Redbird last year, amid political backlash over press freedom concerns. Those are the latest headlines for now. More at 4:30.
Thank you, Tatiana. Action-packed hour ahead, and it starts with this man, Donald Trump. He's dropped a huge bombshell on Brussels by slapping the European Union with an astonishing 50% trade tariffs. Now, the president blasted on Truth Social. Our discussions with them are going nowhere, and warned that the tariffs, which Britain, of course, will dodge thanks to Brexit, will start as soon as June the 1st. So, let's face it, this is the ultimate Brexit bonus at a time when Keir Starmer is getting closer to Brussels. Well, in the studio to discuss it with me, as ever, our political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, people shouldn't be that surprised by this. Donald Trump cannot stand the European Union. He's been open with his contempt. He compares it to the mafia, a racket designed solely to rip America off. It's that time of the day again. It's negotiation time. It's high-stakes poker. Poof, he's gone all in.
That's right. 50% tariffs on EU exports to America from June the 1st. That's a week on Sunday. The language, though, is incendiary from the president. The EU, he says, would have fallen for the primary purpose, he says, of taking advantage of the United States on trade has been very difficult to deal with, he says. Their powerful trade barriers, VAT, taxes, corporate penalties, non-monetary trade barriers, monetary manipulation, unfair and unjustified lawsuits against US companies have led to a deficit of $250 million. Discussions are going nowhere. Therefore, I can announce a 50% straight tariff on EU goods starting 1st of June. No tariffs made in the US, though, will be affected. Extraordinary. We've been here before. Let's think back to the 2nd of April, so-called Liberation Day, when the president announced all those different tariffs, including on the UK. Markets tanked for about 5 weeks. They're now back above where they were.
That's right.
And that's why I think the market response hasn't been as dramatic as you might expect. Had this happened on its own before Liberation Day, a far bigger reaction, off by about 1% so far. So people are wondering, is this an opening gambit for a deal with the EU? But the EU are looking at £18 billion worth of trade reverse tariffs on US goods. And it may affect, by the way, Northern Ireland. Let's not forget our views in Northern Ireland.
Yes.
They're very important to us. They could be
still caught in the orbit, of course.
Really important. They are both in both the jurisdiction of the EU and the UK. That's good in the sense they can trade into both markets tariff-free. But if they could well be hit by import tariffs from the States.
And we believe around about 20 minutes' time in Brussels, there'll be a face-to-face meeting between Marcos Sefcovic, that's the European Commission's trade chief, meeting with his American counterpart, that is Jameson Greer, at 5:30 local time, Brussels, 4:30, of course, our time. So, and Mr. Sefcovic said that he wants to hear about these tariffs face-to-face because, as is the way with Donald Trump, he announced it on social media. He's releasing policy on Truth Social, but bringing this back to Britain, bringing it back to Brexit. Well, this is clearly a Brexit bonus. We've dodged the tariffs. Let's be positive.
But have we dodged them?
Well,
because...
Yeah.
Well, sorry to cut you, Martin, but have we dodged them because of the Monday deal? We are now going to pay money to enter into elements of the single market. Is it time Keir Starmer rethinks the Brexit deal?
Chris, you just set up a debate beautifully now. Let's bring in two guests with opposing views. I'm joined by the former Labour advisor Mike Buckley and the former Conservative member of the European Parliament, David Campbell-Bannerman. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Let's get cracking. Right, let's start with you, Mike Buckley. So, let's be honest, we dodged a bullet by getting a mere 10% penalty. Could be 5 times as bad over the English Channel. So that begs the question, why on earth would Sir Keir Starmer choose this week to get into bed with Brussels?
Well, I mean, you mentioned we've dodged a bullet, but you also mentioned the fact that the markets haven't really reacted to this, and they haven't reacted because they believe it's not going to happen. The markets take a look at things like this and think, is this realistic? And decide that in this case, no, it really isn't. There's pretty much zero chance that Trump is going to hold to this 50%, in part because it would do huge damage to the European economy and therefore the global economy, but also it would do huge damage to the American economy as well. So it just isn't going to happen. It would also push prices up for US consumers. That's going to make him even more unpopular, and it's going to make his Republican cohort even more unpopular. And you talk, even if this were to happen, fair enough, the Europeans their goods would pay more tariffs or would cost more for US consumers. And you talk about that as a Brexit win, but bear in mind, Brexit has cost our economy billions over the long term. What Keir Starmer did last week was make that cost a little bit lower by bringing us into alignment on food and on energy. And by the way, that's also going to cut your energy bill. Everybody's energy in the UK is going to be cheaper because of that deal, and it's going to cut your food bill. Everybody's food in the UK is going to be cheaper because of that deal. So Keir Starmer last week made moves to improve the Brexit deal a little bit that is going to benefit everybody watching this programme with the pound in your pocket. So everybody should be happy about that. But looking at these tariffs, I just don't think they're going to happen, and the markets are obviously of the same view.
OK, David Campbell Bannerman, let's bring you. You've got experience, of course, of being inside the belly of the beast in Brussels, just like myself. And my question to you is quite simple. Are they foolhardy enough, are they brazen enough to try and lock horns with Donald Trump? Could we see a trade war?
Well, we had one before. I was 10 years on the International Trade Committee as an MEP. We had one before over steel, which was a lot more limited, but there was fallout for Britain, of course. We got hit. The whiskey, for example, got hit, Scotch whiskey, thanks to this, steel war, effectively. But this looks a lot larger and more serious. I think Mike might be a bit complacent here because, Trump is not someone that is to be messed with and does actually follow through on this. These are massive tariffs, 50% tariffs, like on BMWs, Mercedes, going to America. It could be really very serious. I'm not in favor of, tariffs and trade wars or whatever. But I think what Trump does with these things is counterintuitive. He levies these massive tariffs in order to drive a trade deal to cut tariffs.
Yeah.
So you end up better off afterwards.
OK, I'm sat with Chris Hope. He'd like to join the debate. Chris, over to you.
David and Mike, a quick question, a simple question. Is it time that we rethought this Brexit reset deal from Monday? DCB, rip it up?
Yeah, look, Starmer is running into a burning building, for heaven's sake. Why do you want to get close to the EU just at the moment? It's going to be crucified. The German and French economies are in a bad way anyway. We in the UK are doing better than them. So, being saddled with this, it's like putting back on your chains after you've been liberated. Starmer's in favour of slavery.
There we go. Mike Buckley, over to you.
I'm sorry, did you just say Starmer was in favour of slavery?
I said I didn't think he was in favour of slavery, and this is
economic about being in slavery to Brussels. Sorry, I thought it was going to be as in slavery. You don't mean that. Well, that's a good thing. Excuse me, sorry, I was speaking wrong at this stage. Of course he's not. As I said a minute ago, what Keir Starmer did last week cuts your bills, cuts your energy bill and cuts your food bill. Everybody watching this programme is going to be better off because of what Keir Starmer did last week. And
when's that going to happen, Mike? Because we've got the priciest electricity in the Western world, and food inflation was up 3.5% this week. When's this going to happen?
And that is in part because of the Brexit deal that Boris Johnson brought together 5 years ago. Prices are going to come down on food almost immediately because those checks are going to come down. The energy will take a little bit longer, but what's going to happen is more interconnectors are going to get built, so we'll be able to share electricity better. It also means there's less likelihood of blackouts because we'll be sharing electricity across the continent, which is a very, very sensible thing to do.
Well, there's a blackout in Spain. A lot of people are saying that was because of a reliance on net zero by a socialist government. David, let's bring you in for the final word. Everything's going to be great. Cheaper prices, cheaper electricity, a world of bread, milk and honey, thanks to Brexit and Keir Starmer.
No, well, I'm sorry, I just don't buy it. And these supposed gains, there's no timeline on them. And we're still going to be paying out. We seem to be paying for everything, paying for the own SPS, these agricultural checks and things. We're paying for it. we'll be paying billions in with very little to show for it. I mean, the bit on justice, I accept that, and, touch on immigration, there's a bit in there. But generally, it's a disaster. We don't need to do this. It's so unnecessary as well as costly.
OK, we have to leave it there, gentlemen. A fabulous debate. Thank you very much. And a fair point. We still don't know the cost of this Swiss-style deal. We know it costs the Swiss billions of pounds. Could be the same on the hook for the UK. Mike Buckley, David Campbell-Bannerman and, of course, Chris Hope. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much indeed. Now, moving on, fury continues after Sir Keir Starmer signed a £30 billion surrender deal handing over the sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. And the government argues it secures national security, and without this deal, control of the army base could be lost via international courts. But here's the big question. What could £30 billion buy us here in Blighty? Let's take a look. Well, for starters, for 10, could be 20 years winter fuel allowance at £1.5 billion a year. What about this one? 60 years worth of farmers' inheritance tax raid at a price of £500 million a year. If you don't fancy that, you'll like this. 17.5 million British households could have their energy bills paid for at £1,720 per household. Fancy a bit of infrastructure? Well, you're in luck, because £30 billion could buy us 3 new super prisons at £10 billion a pop. And that's enough to keep 30,000 prisoners behind bars where they belong. What about a nice, shiny new power plant? A nuclear power plant? No problem. 26 billion quid, that's what Hinkley C would cost. What about some more key workers? Well, £30 billion will go a long way. It will buy you an astonishing 1 million new nurses. You think my maths are incorrect? Look it up. A billion has 9 zeros. 30,000 goes into that 1 million times. Now, what about soldiers? Well, 1.2 million new soldiers. That'd be quite nice, wouldn't it? Just over £25,000 a pop. And police. I mean, I see Santa more often where I live than a copper. Well, 30 billion quid could buy us 1.4 million new policemen and just shy of 948,000 new teachers. And while we're at it, let's look at the other data. What have Labour given away since they took power? Well, let's add Chagos to the top of the list, 30 billion quid. Public sector pay rises over the term of the Parliament, well, that's 53.9 billion. Carbon capture, 22 billion. Ukraine, 15 billion. Overseas climate aid, 11.6 billion. Junior doctor pay rise, 2.5 billion. And they still might go on strike anyway. Train drivers, 675 million. Defence, 40.2 billion, and extra borrowing costs for all of that, 14.6 billion pounds. Total so far, 190 billion and 475 million. That, my friends, is 8.6 times bigger than the black hole, the £22 billion black hole that the Labour Party like to remind us they inherited. Now, that is a lot of wonga. Chris Hope, when you look at those figures, we started the conversation yesterday. Catherine Fawcett asked the best question in that press conference. Why are British people going to be happy about so much moolah going to Mauritius when that is what it could buy in Britain?
Yes, it could. And if you were Prime Minister, Martin, you'd have different priorities. But the government telling us in terms, unless they took this action to secure this base, they say that it would leave its future uncertain. It would let hostile powers take over other islands near there. We use this island to communicate and run missions over the Middle East, in Asia. It's a vital island for our national security. Yes, all those things are true. I'm sure they're true. Although the government says the real value is 3 something billion in net present value.
But we have it now and it's free.
But in cash terms, 30 billion is what others say. So there are two figures out there, quite different. But no question that I think, we have it now, but the government's point is we've lost various legal challenges and we can't guarantee having it in the future. Some would say, and I've been saying it to the government in meetings I've been having, why on earth just say get lost to these courts. We're a sovereign power. Post-Brexit, we're on our own. We're meant to battle for these things for Britain. But this government wants to go by what the legal challengers are saying to them. They're concerned about uncertainty. They want to secure the future of that base for all of our futures, to keep those nurses safe, those police safe and everything else.
Chris, the numbers are startling. Thanks for going through them with me. Excellent this week. Thank you very, very much. Now, coming up next, as the government insists it has not betrayed the fishing community as part of its reset deal with Brussels, I'll speak to an outraged fisherman who completely disagrees. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain. We like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nigel is back.
Good evening.
Unfiltered.
Are these proposals bold enough?
Uncompromising.
Will it bring growth?
Unmissable.
We as a country are brilliant.
Nigel Farage returns. Coming soon. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. 4:25 is the time. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the government insists that it has not betrayed British fishermen as part of its reset deal with the European Union. Now, under the terms of the UK's new agreement with the EU, European trawlers will have greater access to British waters for an additional 12 years. But ministers insist the deal will be beneficial to our fishermen as they will be able to export their produce, especially shellfish, into Europe much more easily. Is that true? Or have we been stitched up like a kipper, as Chris Hope said to the Prime Minister this week during an excellent press conference question session? Chris, fishing. It's the talismanic issue which Brexiteers really, really get, and I think the Remain establishment, the metropolitan, people who live in cities simply don't get fishing. They think, oh, it's only 0.000 whatever percent of GDP. It isn't about that. It's about belonging. It's about coastal communities. Yes. And is this deal, it's been dressed up as great, But the fishermen, they're not buying it. They're not biting.
Yes, not biting. Yes, fish is a dog that hasn't barked so far in our Brexit conversations yet, Martin, until this week. It is tiny in terms of GDP, but largely because we've given away so much of our waters for decades to foreign trawlers who operate out of continental ports. Now, the Scottish Fishermen's Association said this deal announced on Monday was a horror show, far worse than Boris Johnson's botched Brexit agreement. I interviewed Nick Thomas-Symonds. He's the Minister behind the whole deal, and he said to us at GB News, not a single additional fish can be taken out of UK waters by French fishermen as a consequence. He says that the current deal runs out next year. We had looked at a 4-year extension, keeping it all as it is. Instead, it'll be a 12-year extension. The government's putting in £360 million to invest in increasing those ports. I think we may have a clip now of what Nick Thomas-Symonds told my podcast, Chopper's Political Podcast.
Not a single additional fish can be taken out of British waters by European fishers as a consequence.
You're freezing the agreement this year, aren't you?
Of this rolling over the existing arrangements. Now, I indicated some months ago an openness to a multi-annual deal to give stability. But what the fishers will now have, in addition to those existing arrangements, is much better access to the European Union market. And as of today, 70% of our catch is exported to the European Union market. And what the...
So I'll put it to you, Chris. This comment of not an additional fish will be taken, of course it will. It's a 12-year deal, and apparently Brussels only wanted 4. Look, I'm going to take this now to a fisherman who's waiting patiently, as it were, on the line, and joined by Paul Lyons from Great Yarmouth. Paul, it's a pleasure to have your company. What do you make of these comments? Not a single extra fish will go out of British waters. Don't worry, mind out. No, sit down, calm down, son.
Martin, they live in a dream world. They don't live in the real world. They live in this world they make up, and they pat each other on the head, and they feel good. How do you think young men and companies are invested in this deal that they've done, the so-called Brexit deal, where after 2025 and 26 we negotiate them going, us having our seas back and controlling our destinies from Great Britain, the independent coastal state that we're meant to be? How do you think they feel that they've invested this money in new gear, new boats, new processing facilities, only to be told, hang on, the Dutch and French are going to be hoovering up that fish for another 12 years. I mean, I'm lucky to still be alive, let alone reap the benefits of it. We're an independent coastal state with no teeth. We've got no guts left in us, and we've got fools in Parliament who talk in these sound bites, and they lie barefaced here and think you're going to be stupid enough to believe anything they say. Well, quite honestly, that's a travesty what they've done. They don't care. They don't know what they're doing. And my opinion is they've got to make sure and ruin fishing so badly and tie it up and stitch it up so that any government that try and follow this mess of a government we've got can't do it. That'll fail for them as well. And I'm sick and tired. I'm like every fisherman in Great Britain, and I'm not buying that, oh, you can sell your shellfish. Well, that's a very small part of fishing. You know, I'm absolutely lost for words to what the hell is going on in that Parliament, if this is even legal, Martin.
Well, Paul, you know, they would like to believe that you'd be happy about putting your muscles into Brussels, as it were. But look, let me bring in Chris Hope. He's got a question for you, mate.
Thanks for joining us, Paul. We have spoken to Nick Thomas-Symonds, the guy who devised this Brexit deal. He says that as part of this, you can now sell your crustacean and mussels, crabs, UK crabs, along with other fresh products into the EU, and you couldn't do it beforehand. And they say that 12 years now means you've got certainty for 12 years rather than the year-on-year negotiation of quotas. Does that make sense or not?
No. Not at all. That's absolutely utter squit, as we'd say here in Norfolk, because the 70% we're exporting now, how do you think that get there? That just get on a lorry, they buy it, and that go over there. All that messing around at border posts, what they done to have a little kick against Brexit in the first place, that's all gone by the by. People are exporting shellfish. Well, shellfish ain't all of fishing. And that's a lame excuse, that is. That's just one of these things made up to sound good to convince people who live in cities and live in towns who don't understand. We've got very rich resources left this side. They're decimated theirs, but their approach to fishing is so heavy-handed, they don't think of the future. Well, giving them 12 years is paramount to saying, there's the keys to the Bank of England, don't steal any, will you? Crazy situation.
Yeah, and Paul Lyons, you know, there's so much to talk about in terms of how there's those super trawlers from the European Union hoover up the fish, and as you say, it decimates the ecosystem there. I thought that the people in the European Union cared about marine ecosystems, cared about taking care of the planet. But Paul, we've simply run out of line. Sorry, Paul Lyons. We've run out of time. Thanks for joining us on the show today. It's always a pleasure to get your expertise, and sail safe. And mind how you go. Thanks for joining us today. For joining us on GB News. Paul Lyons there, a man with a lot to say. Now, lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including reports that tax rises are now inevitable after Keir Starmer's public sector pay rises, plus, of course, that £30 billion giveaway to Mauritius. But now it's time for your headlines, and here is Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories. President Donald Trump says he's recommending imposing 50% tariffs on goods from the European Union being imported to the United States starting on the 1st of June. Our discussions with Brussels are going nowhere, he said in a post on social media today. The announcement marks an escalation of Trump's trade war with the EU, which currently has a 10% tariff on all goods being brought into America. The EU Commission declined to comment, saying it would wait for a phone call between the EU trade chief and his US counterpart to take place today. The president also threatened to impose a 25% import tax on iPhones not manufactured in America. Meanwhile, President Trump is calling for the UK to increase and incentivise North Sea oil drilling. Writing on Truth Social, he says our negotiated deal with the United Kingdom is working out well for all. I strongly recommend to them, however, that in order to get their energy costs down, they stop with the costly and unsightly windmills and incentivise modernised drilling in the North Sea, where large amounts of oil lay waiting to be taken. That's as energy bills in the UK will fall by 7% in July, the first drop for a year. It means a household using a typical amount of gas and electricity will see their annual bill fall by £129. Households are being urged to shop around for cheaper energy deals despite prices falling from July. Ofgem says shopping around could lead to a £200 annual saving, but anyone currently on a fixed deal will not benefit from the fall this summer. The regulator's price cap sets the maximum that suppliers can charge for each unit of energy, affecting 21 million households in England, Scotland and Wales. Charities say cheaper bills are welcome, but many people still struggle to pay, with millions of customers collectively owing about £4 billion to suppliers. And Harvard is suing the Trump administration after it revoked the university's ability to enroll international students. In the lawsuit filed in Boston, the university called the administration's actions a blatant violation of the law. It comes a day after officials at the Department of Homeland Security said they would be revoking Harvard's access to student visa programs. The Trump administration says Harvard has not done enough to fight anti-Semitism and change its hiring and admissions practices, allegations the university has strongly denied. Those are the latest headlines for now. More at 5 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3499 and €1.1899. Price of gold is £2,488 and 72 pence per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 8,714 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Yes, time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine Friday for many, but the weather is on the change for the weekend. Wet weather arriving tonight. It's more mixed through the weekend, some showers, but there'll still be some fine weather on the horizon. Now, low pressure and weather fronts are edging in from the Atlantic. That's what's bringing the change, kicking away the high pressure that's been dominating. Weather fronts already bringing rain across Northern Ireland. That'll trickle into western Scotland this evening, western England and Wales before midnight, and then spread to pretty much all areas by the time we get to first thing on Saturday morning. With the cloud and the rain moving in, it is going to be much, much milder tonight. Last night, we got down to -5 in parts of Scotland. Most towns and cities staying in double digits overnight. So it'll be a mild but fairly dull, dismal, damp start to the bank holiday weekend. Rain and drizzle in most areas, slowly edging away to the east, but southeast England, East Anglia, pretty soggy at first thing. Something a bit drier, trying to get into parts of Wales by this time and Northern Ireland. But here too, further showers coming in. A fairly dull and dismal start across much of Scotland also. Again, this zone of rain will be heading its way up across the Northern Isles, where it may linger into the afternoon in Shetland. But mostly it's pushing out into the North Sea. So for many of us, actually it'll get drier through the morning and slowly start to brighten up. And the afternoon may well bring some sunny spells across parts of central and eastern England, especially northeast Scotland. In these eastern areas, though, where it does brighten up, we could see some heavy showers breaking out. We could see some lively downpours in Northern Ireland too. They'll be very hit and miss. In the sunny spells, still feeling quite warm, quite humid as temperatures get up over 20 degrees Celsius. A fresher feel, though, by Sunday. The wind's picking up, a blustery, gusty day across northern areas, particularly so in western Scotland. Plenty of showers packing in here as well. Temperatures won't be as high, but still largely fine across East Anglia and the southeast, where we should see highs over 20 Celsius. Bye for now.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The A720 westbound faces delays at Gilmerton Junction due to a broken down vehicle. Motorists should approach carefully and allow extra time. In Hertfordshire, the M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 18 and 16 is congested, delaying journeys by 20 minutes. The A249 in Kent northbound deals with a collision, causing lane closures between the M2 and the A2500, expected to clear soon. And on the trains, Transport for Wales reports no services between Hereford and Craven Arms, and Great Western Railway disruptions affecting journeys between Bristol, Temple Meads and Bath Spa. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. It's 20 to 5 with me, Martin Daubney. Now, Labour tax rises are looking more and more inevitable. And let's take you through Labour's whopping giveaway since they took power in July. Of course, we heard yesterday, Chagos Island, 30 billion quid. Public sector pay rises, £53.9 billion over the course of the Parliament. Carbon capture, 22 billion. Ukraine, 15 billion. Overseas climate aid, 11.6 billion. Junior doctor pay rises, 2.5 billion. And they still might go on strike. Train drivers, 675 million. Defence increases 40.2 billion, and the extra borrowing cost of all of that, 14.6 billion. Now that, my friends, takes us to a total so far of over 190 billion pounds of a giveaway, and that is almost 9 times the size of the 22 billion pound black hole. Will there be tax rises incoming to pay for all that? Well, I'm joined now in the studio by the policy analyst at the Taxpayers Alliance, Shimian Lee. Shimian, a pleasure to have your company for the second time this week. With that amount of money going out, it feels like public spending is getting out of control. 2 ways to pay for it: borrow or tax. A lot of people are saying tax rises incoming.
Well, I think you're absolutely right that public spending does seem to be out of control. And we just saw this today with the massive inflation-busting pay rise that the government is about to give away. And that's something that the country simply cannot afford, as with all these other spending increases. I mean, the Treasury itself already said that it only budgeted for 2.8%. So that's going to mean cuts in other areas in order to make up that sum. But looking at public spending as a whole, that's actually gone up to unprecedented levels. If you look at public spending, what it's forecasted to be across this parliament, it's set to rise to around 45% of GDP. Now, that is frankly an unprecedented level that's only usually been reached during times of crisis historically. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, during the great financial crisis. But under this government, it's supposed to be going on at 45% on average in the future.
Now, the Chancellor and the Prime Minister both said there will not be any more tax rises on working people. There's that phrase again in this government. But this week, Shimin, we've already heard from the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, setting out actually she might go on a £4 billion tax raid for people's savings. So they seem to be on manoeuvres to try and get their claws onto people's stash.
Well, I think it's right to be sceptical of the government's promises on tax. I mean, we all remember during the election, they promised not to raise VAT, not to raise national insurance, not to raise income tax, not to raise corporate tax. But immediately after the election, what did they do? They raised the employer's national insurance. That's a tax on jobs. That's a tax on working people. And that's a tax that's going to prevent a lot of people from getting pay rises in the private sector, just as they're voting these massive increases in pay for people in the public sector.
Now, the government would say if they're in a tight corner and they inherited badly, then they will have to try and make ends meet, and that means making difficult choices. A lot of those choices our viewers might not be happy about, but you have to be prudent. You can't just endlessly borrow, or we'll end up whirling down the plug hole. So do they just have to do this? Is that the brutal reality?
Well, I think no government's ever forced to do anything. It's all a political choice, especially with these public sector pay rises. I mean, for most of the past 2 decades, public sector pay has been higher than private sector pay, even though productivity has been lower than in the private sector. And if you look at these pay rises, a lot of them are above the rate of inflation. So what is the justification there for ever increasing pay for the public sector? And you make a very good point about the national debt. The national debt is hitting about £2.6 trillion. The interest, just the interest on the national debt is about £100 billion a year. That's a phenomenal sum, and the government has to take action in order to reduce that instead of borrowing more.
OK, we have to do that. Excellent as ever. Thank you very much there. Shimian Lee, the policy analyst at the Taxpayers Alliance. Now, moving swiftly onwards, our Reform UK now looking simply unstoppable. Well, according to a new poll out today, Farage's party is now on 32% of voting intentions, 11 points ahead of the governing Labour Party and a whopping 16% ahead of the Conservatives. Now, I'm joined now by Martin Baxter. He's the founder and the CEO of Electoral Calculus. Martin, always a pleasure. The polling direction seems to be going in that momentum phase consistently. Reform are looking like they are ahead. You've got some fascinating information for us. We talked about where the Labour vote is going, and are the Labour Party correct to be tacking towards the right? You've got a graphic for us on the screen there, Martin. Talk us through it.
Yes, thanks, Martin. So, as you say, Reform are on the up and up. We've got this new poll today with them on 32%, but even on a poll of polls, which takes an average, they're on 30%. And 30% is a magic number for any party that pretty much guarantees you get a majority if there was an election at Westminster tomorrow. But we looked a bit behind the headlines to see where voters are actually moving from and to. So the graphic here is not a 19th century plan of the Battle of Waterloo. It's actually the Battle of Westminster that's going on right now. So each little person there represents 1% of the voting public. So there's 100 of those coloured people, and you can see them moving around. So Labour at the last election had a big block, but you can see all that grey set of people, they're greyed out. They've left Labour and they've gone elsewhere. And the worrying thing for Labour is they've gone in lots of different directions. A couple have gone to the Lib Dems and the Greens, so keeping with the centre-left. 3 have moved over to Reform directly, but not a huge number. But 6% of the entire population were Labour voters who are now planning to be non-voters. They're planning to stay at home if there was an election tomorrow. So Labour's problem being that they're picking up the Conservatives' problem from last year, which is that they could best be described as wide-spectrum repulsive. They are throwing off voters in all directions. Reform are gathering in voters from many directions, from the Liberals, from Labour, from the Conservatives, and also a large number of people who didn't vote at the last election would like to vote for Reform. So that's the very interesting tectonics underneath the headlines that we're seeing. But it reflects the fact there's big movements in British politics.
It's a fascinating phrase, wide spectrum repulsive. I think I've seen them. Well, they're a punk band or something. I digress. But this points to a big problem because the Labour vote is fracturing towards the left, right and centre, literally, and a big problem, ennui. People sitting at home, they don't recognise the party anymore, or they simply think it's moving in the wrong direction. And that means, Martin Baxter, if the Labour Party are trying to out-reform reform, it might put people off who are going to the Liberal Democrats and the Greens, and that, as you call, is wide spectrum repulsive and very difficult to fix. Martin Baxter, we ran out of time, but thank you very much for joining us on the show. Always a pleasure to have your expertise. Now, coming up, an update on the breaking story of a fire in Rushden. We'll be joined by a commander on the ground there. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
What can you say about it? Has it lasted time? It was slayed in flame.
Yeah.
Was it about slaying?
No, it was an amalgamation of lots of bands that we knew. The director and the writer, Richard Longcrane and Andrew Birkin, they sent us the script as a script originally, and we said, oh, bands don't behave like this in real life. So we decided to take them to America on tour for a month. So they saw what it was like really behind the scenes of a rock band. And we told them stories of what we knew about other bands, plus ourselves, and they amalgamated that into the film. So every scene in the film is true. Not to say...
result?
Fantastic.
Yeah?
Mind you, when it came out in 75, the critics were great to it, but the fans didn't like it.
Yeah.
It was too heavy duty for the fans because it wasn't a comedy film like they expected from a happy-go-lucky band like we were.
But that you did that on purpose, though.
We did it on purpose.
To make a
we
film
didn't
like
want to
all
make
the
it.
other. Dave Clark 5 had done Catch Us If You Can, Hard Day's
Oh, he
Night.
knows all that. Yeah.
They were all
there were lots out there.
Yeah.
We wanted to go totally the other way because nobody expected us to do that.
Yeah.
Of course, the fans thought, whoa, what's this?
But were you worried, though, at that time?
Of course.
Well, hold on, maybe we've made a mistake here.
Of course. When it come out in America, they had to put subtitles on.
Oh, really?
Because they couldn't understand our accents. But 50 years on now, it's just gained momentum.
Yeah.
It's now become a real classic of the rock movie genre. It's Mark Kermode who gave it the title Citizen Kane of rock movies, which is a great accolade for us. Plus, the movie is great. The movie soundtrack is great as well.
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 5. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, we've got some breaking news for you. And a major incident has been declared as emergency services battle a blaze in Rushden at a recycling warehouse. Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue have said that the fire has involved a large quantity of plastic at the premises, which we believe is a recycling centre. Well, joining us now is the Area Manager Response for the Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue Service, Mick Barry. Mr Barry, welcome to the show. We've seen some incredible pictures on our screens of a huge plume of black smoke belching out of what we believe is a recycling warehouse centre. You're on the ground there. Tell us more.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we were called at 6:30 this morning, and we had a large number of calls, as you can imagine, because you can see from the smoke it was seen all over the county and beyond. And, we worked extremely hard. All the emergency services worked really hard and managed to sort of get it under control as the day has gone on. But certainly in the early stages, it was a very challenging incident. We had 12 fire engines there, 3 turntable ladders, some water bowsers, high volume pump. We got support from neighbouring counties, from Bedfordshire and Cambridgeshire. So just wanted to thank all emergency services. Fire control were extremely busy as well. So I just wanted to thank everybody for all of their hard work and efforts. In the sort of early stages, we did have multi-agency meetings this morning, and it was agreed as a multi-agency that we would declare a major incident. It's been a very, very complex incident, and although we are making great progress now, it's going to continue on, over the weekend as well.
And Mick Berry, I'd like to thank you and your colleagues for your heroic work. We saw with that fire at Bicester last week, 3 tragically died. I don't think you boys and girls get enough credit, so thanks for all the work you've done. But look, on some of those pictures we see there, close-ups of like massive bundles of plastic waiting to go into recycling plants. And, that must be belching out some very, very nasty plumes of smoke, toxic chemicals. Is there any risk, Mick Berry, to anybody in the area of inhaling this?
Yeah, so it is a significant incident, and you're right, there's lots of tight plastic that's involved in fire, which is quite challenging to extinguish as well. So early on, we've worked with partner agencies to make sure that we've effectively communicated with all of the community to warn and inform about staying away from the area. We've had a number of road closures. We quickly closed the industrial estate as well. So we wanted to thank local businesses, local residents for, bearing with us and being really patient and avoiding the area. And these were the key messages, really: to avoid the area, keep doors and windows closed. And whilst it may look, quite impressive looking at the pictures you've got there, obviously it is a hazardous scene.
Mick, we have a quick minute before we have to go. Can I ask you the status? Is this fire now out? Is it under control? What's the latest?
Okay, so we've just finished our latest multi-agency meeting this afternoon, and thankfully we've now all declared that this is no longer a major incident. The fire is still burning, but we've made significant progress, and so we've reduced our resources a lot. The roads will remain closed overnight. We will have resources on scene over the whole weekend, but I'm pleased to say that we have scaled this down.
Well done. Thank you very, very much for your work. Once again, thank you to the boys and the girls there for getting control again. We saw some terrible scenes in Bicester last weekend. Fire services do amazing work. Thank you very much. Area Manager of Response for the Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue, Mick Berry. Thank you very, very much indeed. Now, next, I'll be joined by the relentless campaigner, Beatrice Pomp, who says that she's proud to have delayed Sir Keir Starmer's Chagos Islands deal. I'll be joined by her next. You're with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. But now it's time for your weather.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Yes, time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine Friday for many, but the weather is on the change for the weekend. Wet weather arriving tonight. It's more mixed through the weekend, some showers, but there'll still be some fine weather on the horizon. Now, low pressure and weather fronts are edging in from the Atlantic. That's what's bringing the change, kicking away the high pressure that's been dominating. Weather fronts already bringing rain across Northern Ireland. That'll trickle into western Scotland this evening, western England and Wales before midnight, and then spread to pretty much all areas by the time we get to first thing on Saturday morning. With the cloud and the rain moving in, it is going to be much, much milder tonight. Last night, we got down to -5 in parts of Scotland. Most towns and cities staying in double digits overnight. So it'll be a mild but fairly dull, dismal, damp start to the bank holiday weekend. Rain and drizzle in most areas, slowly edging away to the east, but southeast England, East Anglia, pretty soggy at first thing. Something a bit drier, trying to get into parts of Wales by this time and Northern Ireland. But here too, further showers coming in. A fairly dull and dismal start across much of Scotland also. Again, this zone of rain will be heading its way away up across the Northern Isles, where it may linger into the afternoon in Shetland. But mostly it's pushing out into the North Sea. So for many of us, actually it'll get drier through the morning and slowly start to brighten up. And the afternoon may well bring some sunny spells across parts of central and eastern England, especially northeast Scotland. In these eastern areas, though, where it does brighten up, we could see some heavy showers breaking out. We could see some lively downpours in Northern Ireland too. They'll be very hit and miss. In the sunny spells, still feeling quite warm, quite humid as temperatures get up over 20 degrees Celsius. A fresher feel, though, by Sunday. The wind's picking up, a blustery, gusty day across northern areas, particularly so in western Scotland. Plenty of showers packing in here as well. Temperatures won't be as high, but still largely fine across East Anglia and the southeast, where we should see highs over 20 Celsius. Bye for now.
expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A8 westbound at Junction 6 near Newhouse has restrictions due to a broken down vehicle. The M4 westbound between Junction 42 at Earlswood and Junction 43 at Landarcy has a lane closed due to a vehicle fire. The M25 anti-clockwise between Junction 9 and 8 in Surrey has a lane closed due to an incident. Warrington's M56 eastbound entry slip at Junction 10 faces lane closures due to a police incident. And on the trains, no trains run between Hereford and Craven Arms. Great Western Railway is disrupted between Bristol Temple Meads and Bath Spa. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Someone is going to win the biggest prize package to date, and that someone could be you, driving away in this Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It has plenty of room for your family of four, comes complete with kitchen, bathroom and all the space you'll need for life on the road. Plus, we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you and a happy Friday. It's 5 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, Donald Trump has dropped a huge bombshell on Brussels by slapping the European Union with a whopping 50% trade tariff. Donald Trump blasted on Truth Social. Our discussions with them are going nowhere and warned the tariffs, which Britain will dodge, of course, thanks to Brexit, will start as soon as June the 1st.
No surrender! No retreat! No surrender! No retreat! No surrender!
And it's been revealed that the true cost of the Chagos Islands deal could be as high as £30 billion. An astonishing analysis by GB News Today can reveal that that would pay for, wait for it, 1 million new nurses, a new nuclear power plant, or enough winter fuel payments allowances to keep British pensioners warm for 20 years. Should we really be sending that amount of moolah to Mauritius, or should charity begin at home? And you can see on your screen there the relentless campaigner Beatrice Pomp. She joins me next. She's the lawyer who got that dramatic 11th hour intervention. And the families of those murdered by the triple killer Valdo Calacane are to emotionally return to the site of the killings to mark their second anniversary on June the 13th. On today's show, earlier on, I was joined by Emma Webber, the mother of Barnaby, and later in the show, I'll be joined in the studio by the father of Grace O'Malley Kumar, Sanjay, to highlight what he calls a systemic lack of care, compassion and respect. And GB News viewers were outraged earlier this week when a little boat ship's flotilla to mark the 85th anniversary of the Dunkirk evacuation was diverted due to a dinghy rescue by a border force. Well, on today's show, I'll be joined by the grandson of a British Army veteran who was evacuated from Dunkirk back in the day to get his reaction. You'll not want to miss it. Well, the show, it's a pleasure to have your company. So, in the week that Sir Keir Starmer decided to cosy up to Brussels, Donald Trump had a very, very different take. He's just slapped a 50% tariff on all goods coming out of the European Union with effect from June the 1st. This is as trade talks are happening as we speak in Brussels. Donald Trump has sent his trade envoy to meet his European Union counterpart. What a meeting that would be to the fly on the wall. What does this mean for Britain, of course? That's a big question. We dodged all of this because we're no longer in the European Union. What a Brexit bonus that is. And yet, this week, cozying up closer to Brussels, might we get caught in the crossfire? Might the regulatory alignment of tariffs of agricultural goods impact Britain? Plus, yesterday's dramatic scenes, the lawyer at the heart of the story, Beatrice Pomp, she'll join me on the show for a first media interview about how she almost derailed Sir Keir Starmer's trade giveaway to Chagos. That's next. Get in touch the usual way, gbnews.com/your say. But now it's time for your headlines, and here is Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories this hour. President Donald Trump says he's recommending imposing 50% tariffs on goods from the European Union being imported to the United States starting on the 1st of June. In a post on social media today, he said our discussions with Brussels are going nowhere. The announcement marks an escalation of Trump's trade war with the EU, which currently has a 10% tariff on all goods being brought into America. The president also threatened to impose a 25% import tax on iPhones not manufactured in the US. Meanwhile, President Trump is calling for the UK to increase and incentivise North Sea oil drilling. Writing on Truth Social, he says our negotiated deal with the United Kingdom is working out well for all. I strongly recommend to them, however, that in order to get their energy costs down, they stop with the costly and unsightly windmills and incentivise modernised drilling in the North Sea, where large amounts of oil lay waiting to be taken. Well, that's as energy bills in the UK will fall by 7% in July, the first drop for a year. It means a household using a typical amount of gas and electricity will see their annual bill fall by £129. The regulator's price cap sets a maximum that suppliers can charge for each unit of energy, affecting 21 million households in England, Scotland and Wales. Charities say cheaper bills are welcome, but many people still struggle to pay, with millions of customers collectively owing about £4 billion to suppliers. Under-Secretary of State at the Department for Energy Security, Miata Fanpula, says it's a big relief for some families under pressure with the cost of living, but needs to go further.
But we're really clear that we have to continue the work of getting bills down for good. And the only way we're going to do that is to break our reliance on global fossil fuel markets we have no control over and deliver clean, homegrown energy. And we are working flat out to deliver that. And we're also really clear that as we make that transition, we've got to do the job of supporting households. And that's why we're looking to expand the Warm Homes discount to over 6 million households. And that's why we're doing the work of upgrading hundreds of thousands of homes to make them warmer and cheaper to run.
Harvard is suing the Trump administration after it revoked the university's ability to enroll international students. In the lawsuit filed in Boston, the university called the administration's actions a blatant violation of the law. It comes a day after officials at the Department of Homeland Security said they would be revoking Harvard's access to student visa programs. The Trump administration says Harvard has not done enough to fight anti-Semitism and change its hiring and admissions practices, allegations the university strongly denies. A major incident's been declared as firefighters battle a large blaze at a recycling warehouse in Northamptonshire. Emergency crews were called to the scene at Sanders Lodge Industrial Estate in Rushton at 6:30 this morning. Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue Service says it's receiving cross-border support from Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue Service and anticipates crews will remain at the scene for the rest of the weekend. NFRS said the fire involves a large quantity of plastic. 2 teenagers have pleaded guilty to the murder of a 14-year-old boy who was attacked with machetes on a bus in south-east London. Kaylan Bokassa was stabbed 27 times as he travelled home on a Route 472 bus in Woolwich on the 7th of January. Kaylan, an aspiring rapper, had sustained a severed femoral artery and died shortly after medics arrived at the scene. In an unusual move, Scotland Yard had issued CCTV images and named 2 boys as part of a public appeal for information. They were both arrested on the 15th of January after a manhunt by Met officers and charged the next day. 9 people suspected of working illegally in the UK have been arrested after Home Office immigration enforcement officers descended on a Surrey caravan park on Tuesday morning. The individuals, 5 Brazilian men, 1 Brazilian woman, 2 Indian men and an Indian woman, were arrested at the site in Green Lane following intelligence they were working illegally as delivery drivers in the gig economy. Currently, companies hiring gig economy and zero-hours workers are not legally required to check the status of these workers. But the government's changing the law, so illegal working checks are expanded to bring them in line with other employers. And the Telegraph is set to be sold to a transatlantic group led by Redbird Capital, ending 2 years of uncertainty over its future. The founder of the US private equity firm has signed a preliminary £500 million deal to take control of the publisher, with an additional agreement to deliver a significant investment in journalism. The deal comes after the government blocked a previous takeover attempt by Redbird last year amid political backlash over press freedom concerns. And those are the latest headlines for now. More news at 5:30.
Thank you, Tatiana. Superb as always. Now moving on. Fury continues to mount after Sir Keir Starmer signed a £30 billion surrender deal, handing over the sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. And the government argues it secures national security, and without this deal, control of the army base could have been lost via international courts. But what could £30 billion have bought us? Well, let's have a look through some of the numbers. The scores on the doors. It could get us 20 years of winter fuel allowance at £1.5 billion a year. How about 60 years of farmers' inheritance tax raid at £500 million a year? What about 17.5 million energy bills at £1,720 per household? Fancy some new infrastructure? What about this? 30 billion quid could pay for 3 new super prisons at £10 billion a pop. That's 30,000 prisoners kept behind bars where they belong. How about a shiny new nuclear power plant? Well, Hinkley C, £26 billion. Still got £4 billion change. Now, what about some new key workers? Well, £30 billion goes a long way. Bear in mind, a billion has got 9 zeros. You get 1 million new nurses at £30,000 a pop, 1.2 million new soldiers, 1.4 million new coppers, and 948,000 almost new teachers. £30 billion goes a long way on British soil, but yesterday the government decided over 100 years to give it to Mauritius. Well, joining now to go through this in the studio is our political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine, you were there yesterday for this dramatic intervention. We have a guest coming up shortly. I'm delighted, Beatrice Pomp, who put that 11th hour claim in against the government and dramatically almost won. You asked the best question of the day. It was about how should British voters feel about this money going overseas when it could be perhaps better spent in the UK, and the figures today seem to be far in excess of what the Prime Minister told us they would be just yesterday.
Yes, it is a bit confusing because he stood there and said 100 million a year average, total cost 3.4 billion. Today we're hearing from the Conservatives that it's 30 billion. In fact, it's very complicated, and I won't go into all the details, but they are both correct. It depends on the way that you calculate it. Normally, the government will take the bigger figure because that's helpful for them. This time, they're calculating it in a way according to what's called net present values, which makes it look much smaller. So those are all correct. But certainly, it is a large amount of money. Now, the Prime Minister said to me, look, it's what we spend on running one aircraft carrier for a year, minus the planes. It's just 0.2% of the defence budget. But still, at a time that the government are making a lot of cuts, you know, for farmers, disabled people, pensioners, etc., I think it's a difficult sell, given that we are giving something that we have owned away to another country and then paying to lease it back.
OK, I believe we have our next guest ready now. Please stick with us. I know you'd like to get involved in this, Catherine. Let's speak now with the Chagosian Beatrice Pompey, who brought that 11th hour injunction, which very, very nearly precipitated a tremendous last-minute victory. Beatrice, welcome to the show. Before we get into the particulars of your legal case, may I ask you for your reaction today, how you're feeling about the deal and how other Chagosians are feeling about your country being given to Mauritius?
Good evening. A lot of Chagosians are furious, but I'm hopeful. Today, I'm getting, when I look at all the support we had yesterday from all the Chagosians from different countries, different parts of the UK, I am hopeful, and we are going to fight this. We've got hope.
And in terms of your case, just talk us through to GB News viewers about the specifics of your case, because I believe that you read a story by GB News' Charlie Peters, which gave you the impetus, as it were, because of the deadline being brought forward. And so you decided to take action, and you took action on behalf of yourself and your human rights and the human rights of other Chagosians. Talk us through the specific aspects of your claim against the British government.
Yes, that's right. We've been, since 60 years ago, since we've been dumped to Mauritius and the Seychelles and other parts of the countries who didn't want us in the first place, we were removed from our islands. The British government have been treating us as if we don't exist. The Mauritian government have been treating us that we're not human beings as well. So why now they will take care of us because of this deal? So we're trying to get we've been trying all the 60 years to get the British government to realize that we are humans. We want our human rights. We want self-determination. We want to stand up for ourselves. Why are we not being looked at?
And your case was 11th hour. There was an overnight hearing around about 2:30 in the morning. There was granted a temporary injunction. It wasn't to be. Later that morning, of course, the court found in favour of the government. And yet, Beatrice, you sound optimistic about the fight going on. How might that fight look like? What might happen next?
Next, we're still going to go back and tell them that they didn't consult us on this deal. We're still standing. We're stronger than before. We are more united now since yesterday. It has brought us together, and other British people as well, who was born in this country, they should be concerned as well. So don't be shy. Let's join forces, because it's going to come out of your pockets as well.
And Beatrice, I also understand outside the court yesterday there was a huge round of applause for Richard Tice, because Richard Tice tore up the contract, tore up the bill yesterday. And as I understand it, he stated that if reform were to form the next government, hey, that's a long way away, he said that the Reform Party would try and reverse this deal. So are you holding out, perhaps, that a change of government could be more in your favour?
Well, we still have the MPs that's supposed to vote still before this deal can go through. The signing of the papers is not the end of everything. So that gives us hope as well there.
That's good. I'm joined by Catherine Forster in the studio. She was sat next to you, I believe, in court yesterday. So, Catherine, would you like to have a question with Beatrice?
Yes, Beatrice, I was in the court yesterday and I was struck by the irony, really, that... where is camera 5? Oh, yeah, sorry. I was struck by the irony of the fact that, you know, you were saying that the government is breaching international law on human rights, and yet here we have a Prime Minister who was a former human rights lawyer. Are you surprised that with his background, the government have not given more consideration to the Chagossian people? And, you know, yet again, you seem to have been left out of the equation. Do you feel that he should be apologising, that he should be embarrassed?
No, I'm not surprised because they have no shame. They've been trampling on us from day one, and they blame it on their ancestors, but they take on the belt and carry it along and keep doing whatever the ancestors was doing. So they got no shame.
And Beatrice, just a final question to you. You've been through quite an emotional whirlwind. What a roller coaster. You had the high of the potential victory, the temporary reprieve, as it were, then the low of this going against you. But you seem remarkably stoic today. You seem upbeat almost about the future.
Yeah. I wasn't. Yeah, I'm not going down. I'm going up. So, yes, I'm feeling hopeful. I've got supporters behind me. We only gonna get stronger.
Yeah, do you know what? I was joined yesterday in the studio by Misley Mandarin and Vanessa Callow. Of course, you know them, and they were absolutely the same. You know, if you could bottle the spirit of the Chagossians, I swear we could send something to the moon. It's been an incredible cycle. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today, Beatrice Pompey. A pleasure to have your company, and you know, get some rest. This must be very, very exhausting for you. But thank you so much for joining us on GB News, and also thank you, of course, to Catherine Forster, excellent as ever. Thank you. Now moving on, 2 men with paranoid schizophrenia stabbed members of the public in separate attacks just weeks before Valdo Callicane's killings in Nottingham, and all were under the care of the same NHS trust. Now, students Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar and school caretaker Ian Coates were stabbed to death by Callicane on the 13th of June in 2023. Now, families of the victims will be returning to Nottingham next month on June the 13th for the 2nd anniversary as the public inquiry begins, and they still demand answers. I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio by Dr. Sanjoy Kumar, who's the father of the Nottingham victim, Grace O'Malley Kumar. Sanjoy, first of all, shake your hand as ever. Thank you so much for coming to see us at GB News. I spoke to Emma Webber earlier on the show. Tell us about the motivation, what you're hoping to achieve, but a very emotional return 2 years to the day on June the 13th. You still feel that you aren't getting enough answers, and you still feel there isn't enough cooperation from the system in Nottingham. Tell us more.
Well, thank you for having me, Martin. I think, you know, I've got to say that Grace, my daughter, had the best year of her life at Nottingham, your hometown. She was at medical school. She was going to become a doctor. She was playing hockey for the first 11. It was a fantastic team. Used to win the Bucks Cup all the time. She was living the dream. The people of Nottingham were lovely. She used to say how warm-hearted they were. But there we were, not knowing how dangerous it really was because of the authorities and because of the Mental Health Trust and because of the failings by the police. In fact, unfortunately, 13th of June 2023 turned our lives upside down, the Webber family's lives upside down, and the Coates family's lives upside down. The horrific attack that took place was totally avoidable, and if it wasn't for the trust, this animal would not have been out on the street, and I think people in Nottingham would have been safer. This story has come to the surface now because of more failings. So I did see your interview with Emma, and in that, at the end, you had a statement by I think the clinical lead, Dr. Susan Alcock, who said that we learn and we have a serious case. Well, this is a serious case review, you know, in our case, not worth the paper it's printed on. And the reason these things happen all the time is because no one is named, no one is blamed. This is the Care Quality Commission report that told us that the services in Nottingham for mental health trust patients were rubbish. From top to down, they were useless. This report tells us absolutely nothing, no detail. This is the NHS England report. Again, it actually tells us nothing. It doesn't blame anyone. It doesn't hold anyone accountable. Things will not change in our country till we actually hold people accountable. The only way of stopping mental health homicides in our country is to hold lazy psychiatrists who don't do their work properly and don't keep the people safe. They are the ones who should be held to account, and that's how we will stop these dreadful things happening that happened in Nottingham.
And we seem to find over and over again, be it rape gangs, be it situations like this, nobody is ever specifically held accountable. Lessons must be learned. You know, we will move on, we won't repeat this, let's light a candle, let's say a prayer. You guys, I know you now, you're not going to stand for that. You're going to push this further, and June the 13th, as well as the totemic date, which must be incredibly hard for you to bear, there's a symbolism in you gathering to make them listen.
Actually, I'm going to lay a rose because my daughter was a rose. She served her county, she served her country, she wanted to be a medic in the NHS and also join the army. There wasn't a person who was more patriotic than my daughter. At 19, she had done more for her country than many 19-year-olds done. She'd volunteered for a COVID vaccination programme. So I'm going to lay a rose where my rose fell, defending her friend. She chose friendship over fear. She didn't run away. She fought that monster, and she fought, and she gave up her life. I'm going to lay a rose where she fell. And I want as many people in Nottingham who want to come and lay a rose with me.
I'd like to be there with you. I said to Emma, I know those streets. I grew up on those streets. I'm ashamed of what happened in my home city. You know, the street where Ian Coates was killed, it's a street behind where I grew up. It just haunts me, and that's insignificant as compared to what you guys have been through, as well as the laying of the rose, which is like hard to, you know, grasp. It's just huge. And as well as holding people to account, you also want to bring some of the survivors together. You want the media to listen, and you're not going to give up, are you?
I tell you what, not till I am breathing my last breath. I want to bring mental health-related homicide in our country to an absolute zero. We have up to 2 mental health-related homicides a week in our country. And that's because of the laziness of people who just can't be bothered to do their jobs properly. Not only is it symbolic for me, but I'll tell you what, everyone who has suffered a mental health homicide should join with us. We want our case to be the last in England, and we don't want any of these because I'll tell you what, they are all preventable. If you look at these case reports, every serious case report, like you were saying, no one is also named. And if you're not named, you're not going to be shamed, and you're going to carry on doing the lazy job. Stop being protected by these trusts. This trust has failed all the way from top to bottom, has been negligent as a corporate body. We are going to hold them to account, and we will not let go.
Incredibly moving, incredibly powerful, and you know, every time I see you, I'm just blown away by you as people, as humans, as families. It's just an astonishing resolve you've got. How do you do it?
Well, I said, I tell you what, I do this for my girl. She was the love of my life. You know, my life is not the same without her. I'm deeply emotional about losing my daughter. And I can't imagine anyone else will want to lose their son, their daughter, their father the way we did. It has to stop. On the 9th of June, we are seeing Wes Streeting, where I'm going to give him all 3 of these reports and ask him where's the answer in here, because there isn't in these reports. You cannot have shambolic reports like this, and I can tell you there is absolutely no way the Secretary of State for Health is going to accept these like us. I want him to reject them himself. I want people held accountable, and believe you me, we will stop this total epidemic in our country.
It's always a pleasure and inspiration to be in your company. Thank you very, very much. And when you meet Mrs. Streeting, please come and see us again. We'll do all we can to keep the pressure up. Thank you very, very much. Dr. Sanjoy Kumar, father of Grace O'Malley Kumar. Now, we're duty-bound to read out that response. It is from Dr. Susan Elcock, the Executive Medical Director at Nottinghamshire Healthcare, and it says this. Whilst we are unable to comment on individual cases due to patient confidentiality, I want to assure people that following any serious incidents, there is a robust review process, which includes an initial management review to ensure any immediate learning and action takes place. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, British News Channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nigel is back.
Good evening.
Unfiltered.
Are these proposals bold enough?
Uncompromising.
Will it bring growth?
Unmissable.
We as a country are brilliant.
Nigel Farage returns. Coming soon. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:39, beg your pardon, with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a flotilla marking 85 years since Dunkirk was forced to divert because of a migrant dinghy in the Channel. But does history really have to make way for today's immigrant crisis? Well, I'm joined now by Al Rush, who is the very proud grandson of the Dunkirk veteran George Rush. Al, thank you so much for coming on. When we covered this story earlier on in the week, I know you were very quick to reply on social media. You put a picture of your grandfather's medals out there. Before we get to your reaction about what's appalled GB News viewers, tell us about your amazing granddad.
Sure, thank you for covering it. George was probably nobody particularly special in the grand scheme of things. He didn't capture 30 Germans single-handed. He didn't assault an enemy position single-handed. He started the war in the ranks as a rifleman, and he ended it as a captain. But more importantly, he served in practically all the theatres that could have been served in, with the exception of the Far East, the 8th Army, North Africa, Sicily, Anzio, D-Day. he was on that. Dunkirk, he was evacuated from there. And he pushed through to Berlin. So he did it all. He did it without fuss. They all came back from the war. They didn't expect anything. And he never talked about it. A different generation, the greatest generation. Incredible.
I mean, I'm just humbled to see a picture of your granddad, let alone to be his grandson, and the pictures of those medals there. You're absolutely right. So soon after V-Day, 80th, you know, it's just the most incredible generation that's ever graced this planet.
And
on to the next question. On to the next point. You know, I mean, when I learned in real time from Mark White that the little boat's flotilla to mark that evacuation had been diverted because of a dinghy in the channel, and it made me ask a huge amount of questions about our national priorities, about the desecration of our history. How did it make you feel knowing your father had made that perilous journey, your grandfather made that perilous journey?
I'm a service veteran myself, and it means a lot to me as well. You know what those men would have gone through. They'd have been miserable on that beach. They'd have been swearing, stamping their feet, cursing like mad. But they just got on and did their job, and you would have understood the feelings and the emotions that they would have gone through as they sailed back. Their comrades would have died. They would have been machine gunned and strafed in the water. They would have been terrified, absolutely terrified. And on any other day but that day, you could probably let it go. But on that one particular day, you'd have thought that somebody would have let that flotilla just pass unimpeded out of respect to those men. And it makes me so angry.
And that didn't happen. We can see pictures on the screen now that flotilla was diverted. Somebody, somewhere, Al Rush, made the decision that the priority of our country was not to let that flotilla pass unhindered back to our shores. The priority was to divert them and instead send a border force vessel in to pick up a dinghy of illegal immigrants. I put it to you, there is no greater and totemic display of how our country has fallen than that.
I agree. I was watching the story previously about Grace, and that really moved me. It was profound, but it's always the little people, the people at the bottom of the pile who make the sacrifices and who have to pay the price for cynical incompetence, indifference far higher up the food chain. And this is just an example of that. Nobody cared. Nobody had the emotional intelligence to think, let's just let this flotilla go through. Awful.
I totally agree with you, and I think everyone watching the show will agree. But can I please thank you for contacting us? Thank you for coming on. Thank you for your service. And thank you for your amazing grandfather's service, the very finest generation we ever had. George Rush, part of that. I'm truly privileged to have spoken to you. Thank you for sharing your story. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Letting me share it. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Pleasure is mine, trust me. Wow, another one today. Plenty more to come throughout the rest of the show, but now if you're travelling home from work or from school, here is your traffic update.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The M73 has northbound restrictions at Junction 2 due to a broken down vehicle. Southbound access to the A19 from the A684 in North Yorkshire is affected by lane closures. Motorists on the M4 westbound between junctions 18 and 20 face 40-minute delays due to a vehicle fire. The M1 southbound in Leicestershire between junctions 25 and 24 has a collision with one lane closed. And on the trains, there is major disruption between Hereford and Craven Arms with Transport for Wales, and Grand Central is experiencing disruption to and from Bradford Interchange. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good
afternoon. It's 35 minutes past 5. I'm Katie Bowen in the GB newsroom. President Donald Trump says he's recommending imposing 50% tariffs on goods from the European Union being imported to the United States, starting on the 1st of June. Our discussions with Brussels are going nowhere, he said in a post on social media today. The announcement marks an escalation of Trump's trade war with the EU, which currently has a 10% tariff on all goods being brought into America. The EU Commission declined to comment, saying it would wait for a phone call between the EU trade chief and his US counterpart to take place later today. The president also threatened to impose a 25% import tax on iPhones not manufactured in America. Meanwhile, President Trump is calling for the UK to increase and incentivise North Sea oil drilling. Writing on Truth Social, he says our negotiated deal with the United Kingdom is working out well for all. I strongly recommend them, however, that in order to get their energy costs down, they stop with the costly and unsightly windmills and incentivise modernised drilling in the North Sea, where large amounts of oil lay waiting to be taken. Well, that's as energy bills in the UK will fall by 7% in July, the first drop for a year, energy regulator Ofgem has announced. It means a household using a typical amount of gas and electricity will see their annual bill fall by £129. Households are being urged to shop around for cheaper energy deals despite prices falling from July. Ofgem says shopping around could lead to a £200 annual saving, but anyone currently on a fixed deal will not benefit from the fall this summer. The regulator's price cap sets a maximum that suppliers can charge for each unit of energy, affecting 21 million households in England, Scotland and Wales. Charities say cheaper bills are welcome, but many people still struggle to pay, with millions of customers collectively owing about £4 billion to suppliers. And Harvard is suing the Trump administration after it revoked the university's ability to enrol international students. In the lawsuit filed in Boston, the university called the administration's actions a blatant violation of the law. It comes a day after officials at the Department of Homeland Security said that they would revoke Harvard's access to student visa programs. The Trump administration says Harvard has not done enough to fight anti-Semitism and change its hiring and admissions practices, allegations that the university has strongly denied. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3511 and €1.1903. The price of gold is £2,486.64 per ounce, and the FTSE 100s close the day at 8,717 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Yes, time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine Friday for many, but the weather is on the change for the weekend. Wet weather arriving tonight. It's more mixed through the weekend, some showers, but there'll still be some fine weather on the horizon. Now, low pressure and weather fronts are edging in from the Atlantic. That's what's bringing the change, kicking away the high pressure that's been dominating. Weather fronts already bringing rain across Northern Ireland. That'll trickle into western Scotland this evening, western England and Wales before midnight, and then spread to pretty much all areas by the time we get to first thing on Saturday morning. With the cloud and the rain moving in, it is going to be much, much milder tonight. Last night, we got down to -5 in parts of Scotland. Most towns and cities staying in double digits overnight. So it'll be a mild but fairly dull, dismal, damp start to the bank holiday weekend. Rain and drizzle in most areas, slowly edging away to the east, but southeast England, East Anglia, pretty soggy at first thing. Something a bit drier, trying to get into parts of Wales by this time and Northern Ireland. But here too, further showers coming in. A fairly dull and dismal start across much of Scotland also. Again, this zone of rain will be heading its way away up across the Northern Isles, where it may linger into the afternoon in Shetland. But mostly it's pushing out into the North Sea. So for many of us, actually it'll get drier through the morning and slowly start to brighten up. And the afternoon may well bring some sunny spells across parts of central and eastern England, especially northeast Scotland. In these eastern areas, though, where it does brighten up, we could see some heavy showers breaking out. We could see some lively downpours in Northern Ireland too. They'll be very hit and miss. In the sunny spell, still feeling quite warm, quite humid as temperatures get up over 20 degrees Celsius. A fresher feel, though, by Sunday. The wind's picking up, a blustery, gusty day across northern areas, particularly so in western Scotland. Plenty of showers packing in here as well. Temperatures won't be as high, but still largely fine across East Anglia and the southeast, where we should see highs over 20 Celsius. Bye for now.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, Tottenham Hotspur fans have taken to the streets of North London as their victorious players take to the streets on an open-top bus to celebrate their Europa League triumph over Manchester United on Wednesday. That is the team there, obviously getting a hero's welcome in their manner around the streets there of North London. They beat Manchester United. It has to be said, it was one of the worst cup finals of all time. Nevertheless, enjoy your moment at Tottenham Hotspur. 17 long years to get a trophy. Now, moving on, are universities really still the bastions of free speech? Well, students at Lancaster University have launched a petition calling on their students' union to refuse affiliation to the Reform UK Society, accusing it of promoting hate. Well, here we go. Once again, the kind, tolerant left being anything but. And here to tell me more is the chairman of Lancaster University's Reform UK Society, Jack Eccles. Jack, welcome to the studio. Thanks for joining me. A petition has been launched to stop you guys gathering. An elected political party now polling the top in the entire country. I believe over 800 people have signed this petition. Why? What are they trying to stop?
Freedom of speech, in my opinion. And it's very interesting because when I first went to university, I thought university was a place to express your opinions, to have an open, honest debate. You know, it's a cornerstone of British values, our ability of freedom of speech. And then this petition completely contradicts the idea that universities are an open place of debate. When I first saw this petition, I felt a lot of emotions. I felt angry, but most of all, I felt disappointed that over 800 people are essentially trying to take away my freedom of speech and my Reform members' freedom of speech.
And what's incredible about this petition, when you look at it, the wording says that the policy of the Code of Conduct of Practice on campus emphasises that all student groups, must promote a respectful, welcoming and non-discriminatory environment. That's the precise opposite of what they're trying to do to you. They're trying to shut you down. They're calling you racist, as we can see on the screen, and they say that your platform makes people feel unsafe on campus. I put it to you, these people have lost their minds.
Well, I mean, it's a clear violation of freedom of speech. I think that many people are influenced by social media. I mean, we even have a communist party that operates at Lancaster University. I think that the sort of institution should take more responsibility, and it should be more open, and it should acknowledge that even if you disagree with certain viewpoints, you have to respect them. Because if we live in a world where people try and shut other people down just because they disagree, we're not going to have a very nice world.
Precisely, and it says here on the petition, we do not wish to silence political debate. Yes, you do. And the point is that going to succeed? Are you disheartened, or actually are people getting in touch with you and saying, just get stuck in, mate?
Well, I've had a lot of support from many people inside the university, outside the university, and I really think they've shot themselves in the foot here, because they have shown me and they've shown many people clearly that this is not just about open debate, this is about an attack on freedom of speech. And this has raised such awareness for freedom of speech at university campuses. And I'm very happy I have the opportunity to come in here and fight for what I believe in, because I think it's integral that we keep universities open and free, and this sort of level of censorship should never be accepted.
Jack Eccles, do you think that there is something happening with young people at the moment? We're led to believe, people of my age, I've got a 15-year-old son, he's 16 on Monday, that all young people now, they're woke, they're to the left, but we're hearing that there is actually more of a movement towards supporting parties like Reform. And we're seeing that, by the way, in France, in Italy, in Germany, in Denmark, in Sweden. Is there an awakening of young people at the moment going on?
There is indeed. I've seen it. I think in terms of young people, young voters are the silent majority. I think every year it's increasing where more and more students are becoming right-wing or leaning that way, because I think people are just fed up. I think people are fed up of being told, you can say this, you can't say this, when in reality, as long as you express your opinions in a, polite, candid manner, you should be able to say what you want.
And let's be absolutely clear, you're not espousing racist values, you're not espousing anti-trans values, you're not espousing anti-LGBTQ+. You don't stand for any of that.
Nope. Never have done, never will do. I am simply being attacked, and my members are being attacked because we support reform. The petition is not just an attack on me, it's not just an attack on my society, it's an attack on the party as a whole, it's an attack on free speech as a whole. And I really hope that the Lancaster Student Union comes out and denounces this as soon as possible, because I have publicly... I've reached out, I've said, let's talk. But so far I've heard nothing back from anyone. I even tried to speak to the petition makers and say, I get, you might have concerns, but let's talk about it. But they don't want any discussion. They just want to silence us.
What a surprise. Well, Jack Eccles, the chairman of the Reform Society at Lancaster University. There's a thing called the Streisand effect, particularly if you're young, and that is you want to do the thing you're not allowed to do. I suspect this could end up being the best advert that you've ever had. Jack Eccles, thanks for coming down to London to see us today. Always an absolute pleasure. Now, in response to this story, Lancaster University issued the following statement. The Students' Union, as a separate legal entity to the university, has its own decision-making process. Lancaster University is committed to upholding the right to freedom of speech within the law for our staff and students. Universities are places for people to express their views and listen to those of others, including those they do not agree with. And a spokesperson for Lancaster University Students' Union sent us the following statement. They said the Students' Union treats all requests for affiliation equally and fairly and with due regard to our legal obligation to respect freedom of speech. The union does not respond to change.org petitions because we cannot be certain that the petitioner or any signatories are actually Lancaster students. This society, along with a number of others, has recently expressed an interest in affiliation, but at the moment affiliation is closed to all new societies because of resource constraints on the union. So there we go, all clear. Now, still to come, we'll be crossing live to Tottenham, where fans have taken to the streets in celebration of Spurs winning their first trophy in 17 tortuous years. That's next. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Well, we're talking about holidays now and how not to pay too much for them. Because I think the thing is, a lot of people are saying, oh, we're going to go on holidays. And then they look and they say, really, can we afford it?
Yeah.
And if people pushed the boat out last year, they may be finding that this year they just can't do it because it definitely is more expensive. Hayley Sparks joins us in the studio now to tell us the tricks of the trade. And you feel, Hayley, that all is not lost. You think if you shop around, you apply a few tricks, you can do OK for yourself.
Yeah, I definitely love to share some of my tips with the viewers because everybody deserves a holiday, but with the cost of living, we want to kind of see where we can save money. So one of my biggest tips would be to use a travel consultant. They work for you for free, so there's no cost to the consumer. But what I didn't realise till I joined the travel industry is about 60% of the world's holidays are trade only, so you wouldn't find them online. So if you work with a professional, they can help do all the research for you. So some of the hotspots at the moment, Poland, for example, is one of the most affordable European destinations. Other really up-and-coming destinations, you've got places like Albania, Bulgaria, great alternatives to Greece. You've only got to have a look online at the stunning coastlines. And another top tip to consider is a cruise. Now, people often think, wow, cruises, you think luxury, you think, you know, sort of bucket list, but that is not the case. The cruise market is so extensive. So there's great budget entry-level cruise lines, which are fantastic for families. You know what you're paying for. There's no hidden charges. And different brands like MSC, for example, they'll do single parent discounts.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 7 minutes to 6. Now, Tottenham Hotspur fans have taken to the streets of North London as their victorious players can be seen. Now, let's get the pictures up. An open-top bus in Tottenham. There we go, surrounded by thousands of fans doing the glory parade, the lap of honour around the ground, around the area to celebrate their Europa League triumph over Manchester United on Wednesday evening. It's been 17 long years without a trophy. Remember that Kane left the club, Harry Kane, to go to Germany in pursuit of silverware. If it had remained, he would have finally got his claws on some silverware. It's been a long, long wait for Spurs fans. Well done to them. Has to be said, it was the most boring cup final in footballing history. Nevertheless, well done. Now, coming up next is Jubes & Co. Tonight, it is Miriam Case. Miriam, what's on your menu?
Good evening, Martin. Well, yes, coming up at 6 o'clock, we are going to be digging into that Chagos deal. What is real cost to the British taxpayer? We're going to be asking about Angela Rayner's leaked memo. Is she right to tackle the middle classes with higher taxes, or at least that is her wish? We're also going to be looking at psychiatric care in Britain and whether or not we're taking the right approach after it was revealed that there were further stabbings before those terrible Nottingham murders in 2023. That's all coming up, but first of all, your weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Yes, time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine Friday for many, but the weather is on the change for the weekend. Wet weather arriving tonight. It's more mixed through the weekend, some showers, but there'll still be some fine weather on the horizon. Now, low pressure and weather fronts are edging in from the Atlantic. That's what's bringing the change, kicking away the high pressure that's been dominating. Weather fronts already bringing rain across Northern Ireland. That'll trickle into western Scotland this evening, western England and Wales before midnight, and then spread